Chapter 595. On the pure white snowfield, small footprints kept extending toward the lake that was sealed by the cold. Behind these small footprints, there was a little girl with pink hair fluttering in the wind. She was wearing a thick thermal jacket, and her face was flushed red from the cold wind. Wait for me. State 0. The little girl panted. In the snow-white fog, she stepped on the snow and chased after the white cat in front of her with great difficulty, step by step, stopping at times. From afar, this might be the beautiful scene of a lively little elf playing on the snowfield. It seems that Clia's body is fine. Not far away, on the balcony of the wooden house, Ray Minkai looked at the little girl chasing the white cat State 0 and nodded slightly. Yes, after the Scandinavian doctors examined Clia many times, they came to a similar conclusion. Lakis, who was holding hot coffee in both hands, walked out of the house. She handed the coffee to Ray Minkai while recalling Clia's diagnosis report. The current Clia will not have any major problems in the next few years. However, because she is a clone, there may be signs of accelerated growth. In addition, there are other hidden dangers that may or may not happen that have not been discovered. The next few years? Ray Minkai took the coffee and took a sip. He once again looked at Clia and the white cat State 0. Just from the lively figure chasing the white cat State 0, Clia did not look any different from other children of the same age. However, in the depths of the body that was similar to Lakis when she was young, there was an unknown time bomb hidden. Actually, Lakis held the coffee cup in her right hand and gently placed her left hand on the cold fence. She said faintly in the mist that rose slowly with her breathing. I once thought of finding an opportunity to return a plant and use the technology there to conduct a comprehensive examination on Clia. Hearing this, Ray Minkai nodded. This is a necessary and correct choice. However, we can't do it now, can we? After several attempts, both Jormungand and Astrid had confirmed that they had lost contact with Klein and my father, Siegel Klein. Whether it is the official channels on the surface or the secret channels we established under the family alliance, they are unable to establish contact with my father. With that, Lux could not help but sigh. This proves that the enemy is likely to have the Klein faction, no Zaft in their hands. Ray Minkai could not help but nod at this conclusion. The reason for losing contact with Siegel Klein was not because of the Sala faction. Judging from Patrick Sala's actions and performance, he did not completely become the demon in the memory, who did not hesitate to use the Genesis to destroy Earth for revenge. Therefore, the mastermind controlling Siegel Klein could only be the person who had swapped Lux Klein for the prince. Oh right. Jormungandr asked me to give you this document. This topic did not last long before Lakis took the initiative to change it. Ray Minkai glanced at the document that Lakis took out from the house, then placed the coffee cup on the railing and took the document. This is the final report of the island? Yes. According to Jormungand, this is the case. Lakis nodded and turned to look at Clia, who was chasing after the white cat 0 with a snowball in her hand. This is the final report combined with the intelligence reported by the people lurking in the Sahak family surrounding the circle of Midgard. Also, in this document, there's a name that I'm very concerned about. A name that you're concerned about? Ray Minkai's gaze wandered between Lakis and the document. Then he opened the document. As a result, his gaze suddenly froze. Miss E. What appeared in front of Ray Minkai was a record of the researchers creating clones of Clia, and the others, no, it should be called photocopies. In the rows of data, the name that was marked many times, Miss E, was particularly eye-catching. This name may be just a normal honorific to the people of this world. But to Ray Minkai, it was an important piece of news that was enough to make his expression serious. Miss E, could it be so coincidental? Ray Minkai could not help but make a series of assumptions about all the anomalies he had encountered so far with the name Miss E in his mind. With the name Miss E as the center, in a vortex of clues that gradually rolled up, Ray Minkai suddenly realized that all of this seemed to be controlled by a pair of invisible hands before the MDE bomb exploded. While escorting Lakis Klein, who had become the ambassador of universal peace, they encountered the explosion of the MDE bomb. Then, after falling into this world, they encountered the Silver Wind incident while escorting the Lakis Klein of this world. Then, they discovered that the fake Lakis Klein had appeared and replaced the real Lakis Klein. This series of clues that once puzzled Ray Minkai were connected the moment the name Miss. He appeared in front of him, a path that should have led to the truth, but Ray Minkai had never imagined. Everything before the explosion of the MDE bomb, the Parliament of Destiny, or at least Miss E, had already planned and executed everything. First, they used the MDE bomb to kill Lakis Klein, who was the ambassador of universal peace and was also an important member of the Space Administration. Then, they used the Silver Wind to erase the Lakis Klein of this world. After eliminating all unstable factors, they could smoothly use Lakis Klein's identity to influence Plant and achieve the goal of controlling this world. As for the final goal, Ray Minkai could not help but have a question mark in his mind. Would the Parliament of Destiny simply act with the goal of world domination? In the many files of the Space Administration, the number of worlds destroyed due to the activities of the Parliament of Destiny was at least 4 digits. This was the number within the range of time and space that the Space Administration could detect. It seems that the truth is still a mystery. Ray Minkai secretly sighed. The appearance of the name Miss E gave Ray Minkai an opportunity to clear up the fog, but even more fog still shrouded the area in front of him. Why? Kai, have you thought of anything? Lakis seemed to have noticed Ray Minkai's strangeness. No, I just thought of some clues. After a pause, Ray Minkai closed the document in his hand. But these clues still need more information to verify. Lakis did not doubt him and nodded silently. For her, the situation might not be any worse. Ray Minkai gently pulled Lakis' right hand and felt the cold touch. Don't worry, we're going back to the universe. But before that, we still need to meet our old friend. Darkness. Darkness. The darkness drowned the consciousness like a tide. In this darkness, where he didn't know the time and where he was, Nigger seemed to have experienced a long time. He didn't know why he was here. He didn't know what happened to him. It was just that. He just remembered the moment when his last memory was torn apart by a dazzling light. Wait, light? What light? As if a drowning person grasped the last life-saving straw, as the light in his mind tore apart his memory, Nigger's long-stagnant memory began to stir. Light, light. The dazzling light pierced through the cockpit and crossed Nigger's upper right side until it penetrated Thunderbolt Gouda. If Nigger did not have the protection of the pilot's suit at that time, he would have turned into some molecules in the atmosphere when the light penetrated Thunderbolt Gouda. But even so, Nigger's memory stopped at that moment. Where am I? I am already dead? The next moment, the light appeared again. However, the light this time was not as dazzling as the previous light, as if it was calling Nigger. Subconsciously, Nigger reached out and caught the light. In an instant, the boundless darkness suddenly dissipated. In the eyes that slowly opened, there was the bright sunshine scattered in the ward. You're awake. As the curtain was blown by the breeze, a familiar voice came from the bedside, attracting the pair of eyes that had just woken up and had not fully recovered. As the gradually clear eyes moved, a familiar face appeared. In an instant, the pupils of the eyes obviously shrank. Immediately, Nigger closed his eyes and smiled calmly. Really? So I'm already in hell? How could it be? No. When I decided to join Zaft, I knew that slaughtering other people's hands would inevitably drag me into hell. Otherwise, how could I see you? Kai. Looking at Nigger lying on the bed, who seemed to have accepted his fate and thought that he was in hell, Ray Minkai suddenly laughed. Ha ha, Nigger. I didn't expect you to be so emotional. It really surprised me. To be honest, before attending your piano performance, I didn't want to die so soon. Ray Minkai's hearty laughter and words made Nigger stunned. He opened his eyes subconsciously and looked at Ray Minkai in disbelief. Kai, you're not dead. The disbelief on Nigger's face made Ray Minkai nod. Kind of. The Ray Minkai you're looking at right now is a real, living person. And you, nigger, are not dead. After all, I don't want to be a villain who kills his friends with his own hands. Kill your friends with your own hands? Nigger's expression was sluggish, and he suddenly jumped up from the bed. You're the pilot of that lion? Well, yes. At that time, I was driving the long-toothed lion to fight with you. Nigger, sorry. There are various reasons for this. If you believe me, can you sit down and listen to my explanation quietly? Raymond Kai's sincerity at the moment made Nigger calm down. Say it. What happened in the end? What happened to the silver wind? Nigger took a few deep breaths and kept his thoughts as calm as possible. When Raymond Kai, who was supposed to be dead, appeared in front of him, Nigger found that the things he knew seemed to have changed dramatically. Thank you, Nigger. Thank you for your trust. But before that, I hope you can meet someone. After Raymond Kai thanked him, he got up and walked to the door and stood there looking at Nigger. Nigger's gaze stayed on Raymond Kai for a moment and then slowly moved to the door. After a long time, Nigger nodded slowly. Then, the door slowly opened under the watchful eyes of Nagori. As the door opened, the wind became a little noisy. A girl in a white dress with long pink hair and a double moon-shaped hair clip was standing there with a sweet smile. Just like in Nigger's memory, she was gently greeting him. Long time no see. Nigger, are your injuries better? At this moment, Nigger's eyes were shocked. It was unbelievable. Raymond Kai's resurrection from the dead had already surprised Nigger. The pink girl who appeared in front of him directly hit Nigger's consciousness back to the stagnant state not long ago. Lakis Klein. Am I back in plant now? In shock, Nigger instinctively looked at Raymond Kai, but Raymond Kai shook his head. This is not plant. It's Scandinavia, located in the extreme north of the earth. Nigger Amify, the person you're seeing now is Lakis Klein, the Lakis Klein you have known since you were a child, the one who took music lessons with you. Lakis stood beside Raymond Kai, looking at Nigger who she had known since she was a child, the one who took music lessons with her, with a serious expression. How was it possible? Wasn't Lux Klein supposed to be in plant? Nigger's thoughts gradually became restless. Amidst his increasingly rapid train of thought, Nigger had already discovered a fact that was enough to subvert plant. Who is the Lakis Klein in plant? I don't know, but the person standing in front of you, Nigger Amify, is Lakis Klein. I believe you should be able to recognize her. Yes. After all, they were playmates who grew up together. How could Nigger not recognize that the girl in front of him was Lakis Klein? It was just that he never thought that there were two Lakis Kleins in this world. A bitter smile appeared on Nigger's face. Lakis, I'm glad that you and Kai are still alive. But what was going on here? Lakis Klein of Plant and Kai, who is obviously a member of Zaft, are driving the pure, white giant lion to fight with us. Nigger opened his mouth, and the bitter smile became deeper. I'm in a mess now, and I can't think at all. Chapter 596. In a blink of an eye, it was the next day. Impacted by the news of the real and fake Lakis and Raymond Kai coming back from the dead, Nigger finally accepted this fact after a whole night. No matter what he thought, Nicholas Amify was now nothing more than a prisoner. Although Raymond Kai and Lakis didn't mean this, Nigger understood that he might have to make a choice in this matter. And this choice was obvious. Kai, after the Silver Wind incident, you boarded the the Archangel, until you landed on Earth? Looking at the two people who came to his room again, Nigger asked slowly. Well, yes. Raymond Kai's answer was abnormally straightforward. He had already guessed what Nigger was thinking. Sure enough, at that time, I didn't understand and didn't realize. It turned out that from that time onwards, the Gundams we faced were already being merciful towards us. Instead, Izak kept murmuring that he would avenge you. As a result, he was beaten up by you. Nigger couldn't help but smile bitterly. As things became clear, Nigger had already figured it out. When they were chasing after the Archangel, it was not because of their own strength that they repeatedly retreated with heavy injuries. Instead, it was because their opponent, the Gundam, had shown mercy. Otherwise, at the beginning, they would have been killed by Gao, like their allies who were piloting the Zeon. Maybe saying this will make you think I'm hypocritical. But being merciful to you is my limit. If I let the other Zeons attack the Archangel, then Lakis will also be in danger. Not to mention, I can still sit and chat with you now. This is my responsibility. Nigger, Kai, you just want to protect me. As soon as Ray Minkai finished speaking, Lakis took the initiative to take over everything. However, Nigger shook his head. Kai, Lakis, you don't have to do this. Although I still don't understand now, I know that you just can't help it. If it were me, perhaps I wouldn't be as persistent as you. Nigger smiled bitterly and ended the topic on his own initiative. All right, I've already understood the situation. Lux, Kai, do you have a plan? For me to lie here and chat with you. You should be prepared, right? As he spoke, Nigger raised his hand and pointed to the void above the sky where many funnel-shaped colonial satellites were floating. Hearing that, Ray Minkai and Lakis looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. Nigger's statement at this moment showed that he had accepted their explanation. I did make some preparations, but before that, you must take care of your body. I don't want Senator Mafe to see you so sick. Ray Minkai teased Nigger with a half-smile, but unexpectedly, Nigger immediately thought of what Ray Minkai and Lakis would do next. Father? Kai Lux, you two are thinking of. I have some plans, but we need to go back to the universe to know the specifics. Nigger, please take care of your injuries now. Lakis interrupted Nigger's words. Regardless of whether Nigger knew what his father Yuri Amifai's plan was, for now, Ray Minkai and Lakis did not want to put too much pressure on Nigger. Really? Then, my task now is to take care of my body. After leaving Nigger's ward, Ray Minkai and Lakis walked on the aisle of the hospital atrium, looking at the doctors and nurses who came and went in a hurry shuttling through the various buildings. Kai, are we really going back to space? At this moment, Lakis had changed from the image of a pink princess to a black-haired girl. If not, she would not be able to stand in public like this. It's time to go back. The path to the universe has been opened, and Jormungard and the others have also found clues. Then it's time for us to go back. Ray Minkai looked up at the sky. It was unknown when the bright and beautiful sun had hidden behind the thick layer of clouds. I think if this continues, Lady Sienna might have an accident. Father, when she thought of Sienna Klein, who was still in plant, Lakis's expression could not help but become gloomy. Yes, no matter how perfect that Lakis Klein's disguise was, with the same memories and the same appearance, that Lakis Klein was still not her. After witnessing the birth of Lakis Klein, Sienna Klein, who grew up, was not the kind of person who could be confused simply by appearance and words. Therefore, Sienna Klein's situation was probably not good. The deep worry finally turned into an unwilling sigh. Let's go back. Kai, let's go back to the universe. A week later, Nickel, who had recovered, changed into a light outfit and put on a mask like someone else. This is the first time I've had such a novel experience. Kai, you're quite used to it. Touching the cold mask, Nigger could not help but complain. Just get used to it. After all, we're going to use the Earth Union ticket next. Ray Minkai, who was also wearing a mask, shrugged and said, other than Lakis, who could freely disguise herself, Ray Minkai and Nigger could only use masks to hide their true faces. Fortunately, due to their participation in the attack and defense of the Victoria Airport, Lars Mutayazi's promise was indeed very effective. After the application was sent through official channels, Lars Mutayazi immediately ordered the approval of the application and specially selected a team to provide necessary services for Ray Minkai. For example, a certain newest mech that belonged to the Earth Union not long ago was loaded into a cargo spaceship through official channels under the watchful eyes of many Victoria Airport logistics personnel. Those who did not know would think that Ray Minkai and the others were a secret force sent by the Earth Union to the universe. For this point, when they saw Ray Minkai and Nigger who were masked, this speculation was gradually accepted by the surrounding people. This might be a wonderful misunderstanding. In the reception hall, Lakis, Astrid, and Klaya were saying goodbye. During this period of time together, Klaya had become accustomed to the existence of Lakis, and when Ray Minkai participated in the attack and defense of the Victoria Airport, she developed a sister-like relationship with Lakis. And when this relationship was gradually warming up, Lakis suddenly wanted to go to the universe. This made Klaya, who had felt the light and warmth from Ray Minkai and Lakis, unable to accept this sudden separation. Sorry, Klaya. Now I have some things to do, so I have to leave here for a while. Lakis gently stroked Klaya's little head and said softly, "A while." Klaya was a little skeptical. A while. Maybe there will be some troublesome matters that will delay me. But I have a promise with Klaya. I will definitely come back. Lakis reached out her hand and gestured to make a pinky promise with Klaya. This was probably a rare gesture for Lakis. The reason why she used this gesture was because not long ago, when Klaya used all her strength to chase the white cat, State Zero, and could not help but want to cry, Ray Minkai used this gesture to make a promise with Klaya. He would let State Zero, the white cat, be carried by Klaya for a while, but Klaya had to study hard and eat well. To be honest, at first, Lakis was very surprised that Ray Minkai and Klaya made a promise by pinky promise. But after that, she had a deep impression of Klaya, who was carrying State Zero, the white cat, sitting at the table and studying seriously. Therefore, Lakis also made a promise with Klaya by pinky promise like Ray Minkai. "You must come back. It's a promise." Klaya bit her lip and hesitantly reached out her hand to make a promise with Lakis. "I will, Klaya, my cute sister." After making a pinky promise with Klaya seriously, Lakis raised her gaze and looked at Astrid, who was beside Klaya. "Astrid, my sister, Klaya, I'll leave it to you." Astrid nodded solemnly and said with a serious expression, "That's right. Yes, Klaya is the princess of our SAS family, and so is Scanavea." Astrid knew about Ray Minkai and Lakis' actions and supported them. However, Astrid was well aware of the risks involved. "Then, I'll leave it to you, Astrid." Lakis nodded at Astrid and patted Klaya's head again. Then, under Klaya's reluctant gaze, she left the guest hall. All of a sudden, just as Lakis was about to step into the boarding gate, Klaya's shout suddenly reached Lakis's ears. "Sister, you must come back with brother." Stopping in her tracks, Lakis resisted the urge to turn around and nodded vigorously. Then, she stepped into the boarding gate under the watchful eyes of Kriya and Astrid. Facing Ray Minkai and Nigger's somewhat puzzled gaze, Lakis simply said, "Let's go. Let's go back to the universe. It's time to uncover the mystery." Under the clear sky. The cargo spaceship carrying the Dark Assault repaired by Scanavea, Ray Minkai, Lakis, and Nigger rushed into the sky along an accelerated trajectory under the full propulsion of the additional thrusters. On the rooftop that still had many bomb craters, a pair of bright eyes stared intently at the cargo spaceship that flew higher and higher, disappearing directly into the sky. "We should go, Klaya." The bright eyes slowly withdrew their gaze from the sky. "Oh, let's go, Astrid. If we stay here, sister will be worried." Looking at the long pink hair fluttering in the wind, Astrid suddenly felt that Klaya really looked like Lakis Klein. As humans became more and more involved in the development of the universe, void creations that originally only existed in myths and legends also appeared like bamboo shoots after the rain. And among these creations, the Troy space station belonging to D was busy as usual according to the research schedule. Among these busy researchers, there was a beautiful woman with an intellectual aura who was carefully and seriously inspecting her research project. Among the equipment and supplies that were neatly arranged according to different needs, a young man with a tender face but far more stable than his peers appeared in front of the woman. "Celine, it seems that there are guests coming to our space station today. The station master has already issued a notice for us to welcome the guests." "Guests?" The woman called Celine thought for a while and didn't care much. Maybe our sponsors are on a whim and want to see if there is any return on their investment. It's just a normal visit. Saul, don't be too nervous. DSSD, the full name of the Deep Space Exploration and Development Organization. This was a research organization set up for the development of deep space. Among them, it insisted on being neutral and not taking sides, which attracted investment from all over the world. And among these investments, there were two sides that launched a large-scale war today, Earth Union and Zaft. Celine, who understood this very well, wasn't as surprised as her partner Saul. Is that so? Saul thought for a while and said with some uncertainty, I see what the station master means. Today's guests seem to be very important. So important that the station master is preparing to personally welcome the guests. Personally welcome? Celine took a moment to process and immediately reacted. Looks like it's the big sponsor that even the station master can't avoid. Let's go. Let's go. Celine lightly tapped her feet and floated over from Saul's side. Her casual appearance surprised Saul. Wait, Celine, you're going to meet the guests like this? At this moment, Celine was wearing a fluffy, sleeveless top and black trousers. Other than that, she was wearing a white coat casually draped over her body. Although Celine's appearance was far above the norm, this casual style of clothing didn't seem to be suitable for meeting guests. What? You're just a 16-year-old brat. Is it your turn to teach me how to meet guests? Edmund's education is really bad. Celine's casual words made Saul swallow his words. He could only obediently follow Celine to the port where the spaceships were parked at the Troy space station. As soon as she arrived, Celine immediately recognized the group of people who were standing in front of the station master and talking to him. That's the daughter of the SAS family? Yes, that's the second daughter of the SAS family, Audrey SAS. Speaking of which, we're quite fated with her. At this moment, Edmund's voice came from behind. Oh, why are you here too? Is the deputy head of the security department so free? Celine frowned slightly and turned around to look at the tall man beside her. Yes, it's rare to meet someone of the same kind. How can I obediently stay in the office and not come out? Isn't that right? Same kind. When Edmund said this, Celine also noticed the man with a white mask standing in the middle of the crowd. That's the knight guarding the young lady of the SAS family. Celine. Chapter 597. In the microgravity warehouse, a group of people walked between the materials that were neatly secured on both sides of the warehouse. These are the latest materials and parts that we need to use for our experimental cutting-edge projects. These materials are the latest materials developed by cutting-edge factories all over the world. With these materials, our cutting-edge theories will not stay on paper. Celine, who was acting as a temporary guide, was introducing the origins of the new materials and parts on both sides of the warehouse, causing the people behind to exclaim from time to time. Not to mention Ray Minkai's reaction. Just Lux and Nickel's reaction was enough to make the D personnel think that this was the reaction of a rich and foolish person. Lux was not the same. As the pilot of the MS, Nigger had probably never imagined that before the MS was manufactured, there would be such a meticulous way of doing things. This is the latest project that we have developed, a cutting-edge project for deep space exploration. Celine led the group through the aisle where the new materials in Type 0 were placed and came to a laboratory that was separated by a huge, semicircular transparent glass. Everyone followed Celine's gaze and found that there was a huge circular base that was connected by many lines in the middle of the glass. On the base, there was a metal ring made of an unknown metal. At first glance, it seemed to be about 10 meters in diameter. Lux's gaze wandered around the metal ring. Under the clear and conspicuous lines, there was a looming, unknown, translucent part. Under the illumination of the light, there was a sense of sacredness. Radiant Bearer. Celine said the name that made Ray Minkai's gaze change. The moment Ray Minkai saw the ring, the name flashed through his mind. Radiant Bearer. This equipment was unknown in Seed, but in the subsequent Seed D, it became famous because of the activity of the two mechs. Destiny Gouda and Freedom Assault. These two mechs used the Radiant Bearer in the later stages of Seed D and obtained unimaginable maneuverability, thus creating different glorious deeds. In the subsequent Stargazer saga, Stargazer Gouda, who was equipped with the Radiant Bearer, pushed Darkness Assault to the depths of the solar system at the end of the Phantom Force's attack on the Troy space station. Of course, this is just the first step of a project that has just stopped on paper. This is the prototype. Ray Minkai looked at the ring that was very different from the one in his memory and asked, Well, yes, This is the prototype. Serene nodded and then explained. This is a deep space exploration project developed based on the MS equipped with a nuclear power reactor. Nuclear power reactor? When they heard this term, the look in Lux and Nickel's eyes changed. For plants people, nuclear power, bloody Valentine, bloody Valentine, comma. Yes, nuclear power reactor. Serene stared deeply at the metal ring. For her, this might be the greatest research project in her life. As long as this project was realized, then the footsteps of human exploration of the universe would continue to extend into the deep space without end. Therefore, she didn't notice the strangeness of Lux and Nickel. But now, there are no usable nuclear power reactors on Earth. Ray Minkai glanced at Lux and Nickel and said, yes. So we are waiting. Selene's words made Lux's eyes change. Waiting? Yes. We are perfecting the design of the Radiant Bearer while waiting for humans to usher in the moment of using nuclear power reactors again. Serene smiled slightly, nodded, and said what she knew. In our refinement, the Radiant Bearer, which must use a nuclear power reactor to start the design, has successfully broken through to the point where it can be used by the most popular battery pack design MS. However, when a Radiant Bearer system is activated, some external forces are needed. External forces? At this point, Lei Minkai already understood what was going on. If Ray Minkai, who was familiar with the settings of Stargazer Gouda, still couldn't understand, he should find a piece of tofu and kill himself. Serene nodded and didn't say much. Instead, she looked back at Lux. Miss Audrey, I have completed your previous commission. Do you need to check it? So fast. Lux was a little surprised. It's just a modification of the ready-made thing. It didn't take much effort. After a pause, Serene said again, I just don't know if the body you brought over could be installed successfully. The design of that thing is developed according to the MS specifications currently produced by Earth United. The conversation between Lux and Serene made Ray Minkai and Nikor a little confused. But with Serene leading the way, Ray Minkai and Nikor, who came to another laboratory, saw an MS with its outer armor dismantled, leaving only the skeleton and many control circuits. Under the control of the mechanical arm, the MS with the energy circuit was slowly performing some basic movements. And behind this almost simple MS skeleton that only met the basic requirements, a pair of steel wings that slowly unfolded to a certain angle and then slowly retracted attracted the attention of Ray Minkai and Nikor. Although the two still couldn't see the door to this pair of steel wings, as pilots, they could tell at a glance that this pair of steel wings was extraordinary. Is that a thruster? Nikor muttered with some uncertainty, because at that moment, Nikor seemed to have connected the metal ring he just saw with the conversation between Lux and Serene. Probably. Ray Minkai was also surprised. The style of the pair of steel wings was somewhat similar to the Radiant Bearer used by Destiny Gauthda in Assault on Freedom. If the metal ring seen before was the prototype of the Radiant Bearer, then this pair of steel wings was probably the prototype of the Radiant Bearer. This is the Radiant Bearer that has been adapted from its appearance to its interior. At the same time, it is also the latest model of the Radiant Bearer that can be carried on an MS that uses a battery pack. Serene seemed to sigh inwardly, but she immediately became spirited again. She met Lux's gaze and said sternly, Don't worry. Miss Audrey, I've completed your commission. As long as you're willing, we can start work at any time to transplant the wing-type Radiant Bearer. That was it. Ray Minkai and Nikor already understood what the previous conversation between Lux and Serene was about. Kai, can I? After Lux nodded at Serene, she turned back to look at Ray Minkai and asked softly, Can I still refuse? Ray Minkai sighed helplessly in his heart. He didn't expect that Lux would actually come up with such a surprise gift and send it to him without his knowledge. But Dr. Serene, I'm sure you know the drawbacks of the battery pack. If the Radiant Bearer is activated after the PS armor is activated. Ray Minkai didn't finish his sentence, but Serene already understood what he meant. Sir Kai, please rest assured, the wing-type Radiant Bearer won't bring any burden to the body other than the PS armor. Because when designing the wing-type Radiant Bearer, we have already taken this situation into consideration. Therefore, on the wing-type radiant bearer, we have already integrated a battery pack that can support its full power operation for 5 minutes. 5 minutes? In other words, after exhausting the energy of the battery pack, the wings will turn to consume the body's energy? Nikor was shocked and quickly asked. 5 minutes of full power operation was neither short nor long. In the hands of a normal pilot, it might be of little use. But in the hands of ACE, it was a powerful weapon that could turn the tide of a battle. Yes, our time is too short. To be able to make the wing-type radiant bearer operate independently for 5 minutes is already our limit. Celine's face was apologetic, but Lux and Ray Minkai didn't mind. No, Dr. Celine, you've already done very well. But I want to know how much power the wing-type radiant bearer can provide to the body under full power operation? Ray Minkai was most concerned about this question. Celine pondered for a few minutes, then said, "In fact, we haven't done much actual combat testing. In such a short time, being able to build this experimental MS armor skeleton and create the wing-type radiant bearer is already our best." After taking a breath, Celine continued, "Of course, from the experimental data collected during this time, it should be able to provide 2 to 3 times the thrust for the wing-type radiant bearer. Instant output of thrust. Yes, instant output. Of course, this isn't the limit of the wing-type radiant bearer. Understand. As a prototype, I'm already satisfied to be able to reach this level. Thank you very much, Dr. Celine." After Ray Minkai and Celine exchanged a few words, Celine waved her hand, indicating that it was nothing. For the people in this space station, being able to easily obtain sponsorship fund from big investors to continue their research was undoubtedly a top priority. At the same time, being able to gain the recognition of big investors through their research was of utmost importance. So, Miss Audrey, Sir Guy, do you have any questions about the wing-type radiant bearer? No. If possible, I hope to install the wing-type radiant bearer as soon as possible. Everything will be as you command, Sir Guy. Just like that, the wing-type radiant bearer became the newest armor of the Dark Assault. But in the hearts of Lakis and Nigger, there was a bigger haze waiting to be dispelled. There was still some time before the installation of the wing-type radiant bearer was completed. During this time, the Troy space station had already prepared a dining area and a room for rest for Lakis, Ray Minkai, Nigger, and the others. The white cat, State Zero, was lying under the table in boredom, looking at the humans walking on the red carpet under artificial gravity. If it weren't for Ray Minkai forbidding the white cat, State Zero, to appear openly in this space, the white cat would have become the darling of the Troy space station. After all, because the ecosystem of the space station was not as perfect as that of the colonial satellites, the restrictions on ecological control were very strict. Although a very small number of cats and dogs would not have any impact on the ecosystem of the space station, for the sake of a clean environment required by some projects, the researchers of the space station rarely brought furry pets into the space station. After staring at the gravity area in boredom for a while, the white cat, State Zero, also confirmed that no one would eavesdrop here. After peeking, it turned and disappeared into the shadows. Ray Minkai nodded at Lakis and Nigger, indicating that they could relax for a while. Both of them breathed a sigh of relief and could not help but look at each other. "Nigger, I remember that Uncle Yuri seems to be in charge of developing projects related to nuclear power, right?" Lakis looked around as if she was confirming that no one would come over in a short period of time. Then she asked softly, "What's the matter?" Nigger's face darkened, and then he nodded. "Yes, although my father didn't say anything, I saw some information about nuclear power reactors from the books he usually read." Lakis and Nigger kept exchanging what they knew, and Ray Minkai, who was listening by the side, already had an idea. Nigger's death had probably become the flame of revenge for Yuri Amify. In other words, the most powerful ace in seed, freedom and justice, was about to be born. This is like shooting yourself in the foot. The voice of the white cat, State Zero, rang in Ray Minkai's ears. "No, even if I don't do it, Nigger may die. He will really die." Ray Minkai did not care much about the white cat, State Zero's mockery. Changing the trajectory of history was already a common occurrence for Ray Minkai. No, I want to go back and see. La, Miss Audrey and Guy. I want to go back and see. Maybe I can stop my father. The more they exchanged ideas, the more flustered Nigger's heart became. The trauma caused by Bloody Valentine's Day to the people of Plant was deeply engraved in their hearts. Nigger did not want his father to be a person who would repeat the same mistake. Wait, you can't go back alone. Maybe I have a friend who can help you. Guy, you. Lakis looked at Ray Minkai, reaching out to hold the impulsive Nigger. Before she could rejoice that Ray Minkai was able to hold Nigger, she was shocked by Ray Minkai's next sentence. Audrey, there are some things that you need to see with your own eyes to understand. Chapter 598. In the end, Nickel left. After learning that his father might become the person who reopened Pandora's box with his own hands, he could no longer hold back his anxiety. So, after Ray Minkai called Law's recycler through D's communication network, Nickel boarded the new mothership New Home and sneaked into Plant's April City with the help of Law to find an opportunity to meet Yuri Amify, Nickel's father. If Nickel hadn't died, yet, maybe it wouldn't have been so troublesome. But now, in the official documents of Plant and Zaft, Nigger was already listed as one of the martyrs. Therefore, Nickel, a hero, could only act quietly. Don't worry. Professor and Liam will arrange everything. When he saw Law again, the young man, who was addicted to machinery, was attracted by the novelty in D's Troy space station, causing him to almost forget the purpose of coming here. If it weren't for his friends who still remembered the purpose of this trip, this guy would have plunged into the novelty that could only be seen in the Troy space station. In the end, with Law's assurance, Ray Minkai and Lakis watched Nickel leave. Kai, do you think Nickel will succeed? Lakis's eyes became a little confused as New Home went away. This was no longer the war she knew. Although Lakis had been protected by Ray Minkai since the Silver Wind incident, this did not prevent Lakis from carefully observing the world with her eyes and observing the people around her. The people on Archangel, the people of the 8th Fleet, Alaska, the people of the United Earth Headquarters, the people of America, the people in the desert, the people on the snowy mountains, and the people who wandered in the refugee camps. Avoiding the war, these various people had already taken root in Lux's heart. The more she thought of them, the more Lakis wanted to end the war as soon as possible, lest the war develop to an irreversible point. However, when Lakis decided to return to the universe, she found that the war was about to take an irreversible step. This is a spiral. Lux. The corner of Ray Minkai's mouth twitched, but he swallowed the words of comfort he was about to say. Spiral. Lux slowly retracted her gaze and looked at Ray Minkai. Yes, spiral. From the moment the first shot was fired in this war, in order to reverse the Earth's united forces, the MS, whose equipment was manufactured first, appeared on the scene. The spiral began. Ray Minkai raised his hands and imitated a spiral gesture before continuing. I'm not sure if it's true or not. The appearance of the first MS gene in human history to be put into actual combat allowed Zaft, who was originally at a disadvantage and wasn't favored by the mainstream of the world, to make a name for itself. It successfully defeated the menacing Earth Alliance and completed the process of allowing Plant to step onto the international stage in a sensational manner. This situation is extremely unbearable for the Earth United Alliance. Therefore, in the war with Zaft, the Earth Alliance also began to mobilize its huge war potential as the most powerful and largest national federation in the human world. It began to develop an airframe that could compete with the MS gene used by Zaft and even the subsequent models. Attack Gouda? Lux, who used to be in the Archangel, naturally knew what the Earth Alliance developed. Yes, this is a battle between spears and shields. No, it should be a battle between swords and swords. Ray Minkai made a gesture that represented a sword. The sword in your hand can kill 10 of my people. Then I will search for and even develop a sharp sword that can kill 100 of your people. After a pause, Ray Minkai slowly exhaled. Audrey, this is a contradictory spiral where the sharp sword in one's hand can be the first to finish off the opponent. In order to deal with Jean, the Earth Alliance developed a series of new MS and Archangel that attacked Gao. Deluxe's eyes flashed with a thoughtful light. And after Zaft learned and deeply understood the threat posed by the new MS and battleships developed by the Earth Alliance, in order to protect the space dominance that has been in his hands since the beginning of the war, he can only continue to invest more effort and energy to develop stronger and newer MS in the resource area, to create more powerful blades to kill the enemy. At this point, Lux seemed to sigh. So, Zaft personally opened the sealed Pandora's box? Yes, this is an unavoidable and unstoppable spiral. Nigger may be able to stop Yuli Amify, but Zaft, and even Plant, is already the world of the pro-war faction. I see. After understanding the situation that Nigger had to face, Lux was not impatient or agitated. Instead, she nodded calmly. Perhaps Lux had already noticed it, but she might still be avoiding this question. Under Ray Minkai's guidance, Lux finally decided to face this world that was about to enter an irreversible spiral. In the dark shadow of Earth, there was the light of civilization that lit up the land. Looking from space, the brighter the light of civilization, the more it represented the glorious miracles created by human civilization in that area. In the night sky that was illuminated by the light of civilization, an extremely fast stream of light inadvertently streaked across. If there were drunkards who occasionally looked up at the night sky, this stream of light might be regarded as a meteor that could be used as a topic of conversation at a banquet. Energy output is stable. Energy consumption is at a stable level. Based on the current consumption level, the independent battery carried by the flying wing-type radiance bearer meets the design requirements. With the real-time monitoring of the Troy space station, the flying wing-type radiance bearer installed on the Dark Assault basically met the design requirements. Your Excellency Guy, based on the conclusion of the multiple accelerations just now, the flying wing-type radiance bearer basically meets the requirements you raised. Celine nodded in satisfaction. Then she sent a message to the Dark Assault that was driving the flying wing-type radiance bearer. I've received it. But there's still some time before the flying wing-type radiance bearer runs out of energy. I hope to collect as much data as possible. Ray Minkai's request wasn't considered a requirement. After all, the flying wing-type radiance bearer was already installed on the Dark Assault. Ray Minkai could pilot the Dark Assault however he wanted. Even if the flying wing-type radiance bearer's battery pack was used up, the Dark Assault's battery pack would still be enough for it to return to the Troy space station. Celine and the girl in charge of communication looked at each other and silently nodded. Okay, Your Excellency Guy, please be careful. Understood. The steel wings on the Dark Assault's back flapped, and a stream of light swept past the Troy space. In a certain desolate universe, an armed spaceship that was modified from a civilian spaceship was quietly flying along a messy gravel belt in this universe. And this armed spaceship was the Tsong Yundi that had separated from Ray Minkai for some time. It was also the mothership of the mercenary giant Snaketail. It's already been more than 70 hours. Why isn't Yaja back yet? Could there have been an accident? Yundi, should we take action? As the diplomat of giant Snaketail, Leto Weiler, who was an expert in both intelligence, seemed to be a little anxious. It had been nearly 72 hours since Rarita Yaja, the intelligence agent of the giant serpent's tail, left the mothership and snuck into the secret colonial satellite in the depths of the asteroid belt alone. However, there was still no information or signal. One could not help but imagine that the intelligence expert Lolita Yaja, who was pursued by many mercenaries, would actually fail one day. Wait a little longer. As the leader of Giant Snaketail, Tsong Yundi slowly raised his eyes and looked at the gravel belt outside the porthole. The mothership's location was the only place in the gravel belt that could hide the mothership. If they acted rashly, they might attract the enemy's attention and might even endanger Lolita Yaja's safety. Hearing Tsong Yundi's words, the silver-haired man leaning against the wall, Elijah Keel, and Lita Weiler looked at each other and silently shook their heads, signaling Lita Weiler to calm down. Fortunately, the anxiety of their companion's long absence was quickly calmed down. A single-person miniature spaceship quietly appeared from the depths of the gravel belt. It emitted a signal light toward the mothership of Giant Snaketail while accelerating to converge with the mothership. It's Yaja. In the surprise of their companion's safe return, the miniature spaceship was quickly stored in the mothership. Yundi, Lita Weiler, guess what I found? The woman walked down from the miniature spaceship and took off her helmet. She had a mysterious smile as she looked at Song Yundi and Lita Weiler, who came to greet her. As for Elijah, he stayed in the bridge and was on alert for possible situations. You didn't encounter the enemy? No crossfire? Song Yundi didn't respond to the mystery of his companion. Instead, he looked at the clean spacesuit on his companion and asked in surprise. Lolita Yaja smiled and gave a thumbs up. Yeah, there's no one on that colonial satellite, and from the degree of abandonment of the facilities, it seems to have been there for about a month. A month? Lita Weiler was taken aback. He had paid a high price to obtain information about this colonial satellite. How did it suddenly become an abandoned colonial satellite? Yes, this is a colonial satellite that has just been abandoned by humans. But I still found some information on it. This is why I stayed there for so long. Tell me about it. Song Yundi saw some clues from the mysterious smile on Lolita Yaja's face. How should I put it? Before this colonial satellite was abandoned by humans, it was indeed very similar to the content mentioned in the mission we accepted. Also, I found some information on it. In this information, it turned out to be information about many members of the Plant Supreme Council. Also, this information is very comprehensive, to the point that it makes me feel terrified. Look, even their clothing preferences, food preferences, and even their subconscious little movements are all present. Lolita said, as she showed the information she found to her companions. Song Yundi didn't read much before he looked at Lita Weiler with a solemn expression. As an expert in intelligence, Lita Weiler also sensed that something bad was going to happen. Yundi, we seem to have been involved in a huge incident. Song Yin Xiao nodded silently, but his eyes, hidden behind his brown glasses, were shining brightly. Yaja, Lita Weiler, let's go. According to the agreement, let's go to D. S. D. Understood. After a series of tests, Dark Assault and the Wing-type Radiant Bearer had completed all the tests. At the end of the test, it could be described as Chinibu. Now, Dark Assault and the Wing-type Radiant Bearer had completely merged into one. In normal mode, Dark Assault's flight consumption came from its own battery pack, and it wouldn't trigger the activation mechanism of the Wing-type Radiant Bearer. In this combat mode, apart from its own power, Dark Assault's flight power would also be partially supported by the Wing-type Radiant Bearer. Of course, this didn't mean that the Wing-type Radiant Bearer would use up all 5 minutes of its full power output. Instead, the Wing-type Radiant Bearer's basic function was to collect energy from the particles of the solar wind and gradually provide thrust for Dark Assault. However, this process required some conversion time. Finally, and also the most powerful full combat mode, the Winged Radiance Bearer would unleash all of its maximum thrust. Within 5 minutes of maximum output, it would provide an unprecedented mobility boost to Pitch Black Assault, helping him turn the tables in one fell swoop. It had to be said that this equipment was necessary for Dark Assault and Rei Minkai. This was because the enemies that Lei Minkai would have to face in the upcoming operation might be even stronger than the ones he had faced before. Sir Kai, there's an armed spaceship calling itself Serpent's Tail requesting to speak with you. Rei Minkai, who had just walked down from Dark Assault and hadn't had time to chat with Lakis, had his eyes lit up as he looked at Lakis. Audrey, Song Yin Zhao and the others are here. Perhaps this is an opportunity. Song Yin Zhao, the mercenary we met on the Snowy Mountain? Lakis immediately recalled the situation on the Snowy Mountain. Yes, when we parted, I asked Serpent's Tail to investigate some things in the universe, and when the results were out, I came to D and requested to meet with Celine. Now, it seems that they should have the results. The results? Yes, the results. Hopefully this will be good news. In the distance, an armed spaceship with a lightning-fast snake symbol was slowly approaching Troy Space Station. Chapter 599. In the void, groups of Xeon, painted in the style of Zaft, appeared. Behind these Xeons, there were two Nazca-class high-speed warships. This was a surprise attack. A surprise attack that made Song Yunxiu and all the members of Giant Snake's Tail extremely unsightly. This was because these enemies had followed the tail of the giant serpent without anyone noticing and had arrived at the Troy Space Station's universe. Were being followed? Being followed by the Zaft army? Lolita Yaja looked at the approaching Xeon with a shocked expression. A casual count revealed that there were 7 Xeons. After leaving the abandoned colonial satellite, they carefully came to the universe where the Troy Space Station was located. How could they be ambushed by an unknown enemy at this crucial moment when they were about to converge? Let's attack. Lied, Yaja. You guys move closer to the Troy Space Station and help them defend. Elijah, you attack with me. The enemies were about to reach them. Song Yunxiu didn't hesitate at all. Instead, he made his choice decisively. Wait, chill. What if the people in the space station treat us as enemies? Then, we'll turn around and leave. Song Yunxiu's answer was very fast, so fast that it made Lied slightly surprised. Okay, Lied, who was already a veteran among the mercenaries, quickly reacted and loudly agreed to Song Yunxiu's order. However, just as Giant Snake's tail began to move, a stream of light appeared from the Troy Space Station. Sir Kai, although the flying wing-type Radiant Bearer's battery pack has been changed, it hasn't undergone the routine maintenance after the test. Please be careful. Celine's eyes flickered as she looked at the image. The flying wing-type Radiant Bearer's dark attack was activated again. Yes. Kai, you must be careful. Lux, who was standing beside Celine, said the same. But Ray Mingkai was full of confidence. Don't worry. As someone who personally tested the flying wing-type Radiant Bearer, I'm very confident in it. Dr. Celine, your work is undoubtedly a masterpiece that will shock the world. Ray Mingkai's words might not be wrong. When Destiny Gao Da unfurled his pair of beautiful wings of light, many glue guys fell head over heels for him. However, due to the limitations of technology and materials, the steel Pula model could not perfectly recreate the pair of beautiful wings of light. Celine sighed slightly. Sir Kai, let's save the compliments later. Right now, the most important thing for us is to get rid of these enemies as soon as possible. After pausing for a moment, Celine continued. Just now, the station master tried his best to contact Zaft and Plant. But unfortunately, we can't get in touch with Zaft and Plant, and even with the Earth Union, we can't get in touch with them. It sounds familiar. When Ray Mingkai heard Celine's words, he felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Wasn't this the plot of the later stage of Stargazer? Wasn't this the scene where the Phantom Army, who coveted Stargazer Gao Da's AI technology, launched a surprise attack after hacking the relay satellite that connected the Troy Space Station to the outside world? How could it happen now? Moreover, the party that launched the surprise attack seemed to be Zaft. Wasn't this a bit messed up? Kai, the enemy's attack is here. Do you need me to monitor the situation of this new toy? White Cat State Zero's voice revealed a hint of curiosity. It was the first time it saw such a fun thing. No, not for the time being. 5 minutes. This would be the first 5 minutes of actual combat between Dark Assault and the winged Radiance Bearer. The wings of light on Dark Assault's back flapped, and it had already passed the mothership of the giant serpent's tail, rushing straight into the enemy's artillery fire. Fast, fast, fast. Ray Mingkai didn't know how the people of the Troy Space Station viewed Dark Assault at this moment, but sitting in the cockpit of Dark Assault, Ray Mingkai felt a little dizzy. Whether it was the enemy's figure or the enemy's artillery fire, it seemed to have become a slow-motion camera in Ray Mingkai's eyes. Every subtle movement, every change in the trajectory of every movement was seen by Ray Mingkai. So fast. What the hell is going on? I can't hit it. If the perspective was changed to Xeon and a Nazca-class high-speed warship, it would be a different scene. They were very slow in Ray Mingkai's eyes, but they were looking at the Dark Assault that had almost turned into a stream of light and horror. The fire control system couldn't catch up. The naked eye couldn't catch up. Even in this situation, the Nazca-class high-speed warship completely abandoned the lock-on system and switched to manual aiming mode in an attempt to drown out the Dark Assault with a barrage of bullets to block its movement path, but still couldn't catch the winged Radiance Bear's Dark Assault at full power. What they could see was that the meteor-like trajectory was constantly shrinking its range of movement. "No, don't come over." In the flash of light, a Xeon turned into a fireball in the blink of an eye, deeply stinging the eyes of the Nazca-class high-speed warship's captain. Now, how is it possible? It's just a civilian organization. How can it have an MS that is more powerful than our Xeon? Could this be the reason for the sudden order from the headquarters? As the fireball lit up in front of his eyes, the commander's memory also recalled the sudden order he received not long ago. The order sent through the encrypted communication channel didn't have much content. It was just a brief description of the mission time, location, and target. When the command with the encrypted symbol from the National Defense Commission was placed in front of the captain's eyes, he had doubts. But now, after seeing the ghostly figure of the Dark Assault, the captain felt that he had understood the order from the National Defense Commission. Don't retreat. Send out all the Xeons that haven't been sent out yet. Block the movement range of that body as much as possible. Don't be afraid. That's the new body of Earth United. As long as we destroy it here, we'll be one step closer to the final victory. Amidst the captain's impassioned words of encouragement, the two Nazca-class high-speed warships quickly released all the remaining Xeon. A corner dog will do something desperate. Ray Minkai glanced at the Nazca-class high-speed warship that began to accelerate after releasing the Xeons. Isn't that just right? If one of them lands on the ground, the battery pack of the new toy will run out very quickly. The White Cat State Zero waved its paw and then said, "If you let me monitor this new toy, it might be able to extend the time by a few minutes." No need. Ray Minkai moved his gaze and glanced at the screen that represented the energy consumption of the winged Radiant Bearer. The last 3 minutes? That's enough. The Dark Assault continued to pull out in the void, as terrifying as a ghost that rushed into the human world from the underworld. No matter how hard Xeon's pilots tried, to the point where they did not hesitate to take the risk of adopting a dense formation in an attempt to create a barrage that was enough to block the dark attack. It was all to no avail. In the dense bullet screen that made Song Yunxiu and Elijah's eyelids twitch wildly, the Dark Assault figure was still like a ghost. It wasn't hit by a single bullet or shell. Every second after the Dark Assault was hit, only the afterimage of the Dark Assault will be shattered by the explosion of the bullets and artillery shells. Looking at the Dark Assault that was like a cat playing with a mouse, shuttling through the bullet screen like lightning and destroying the Xeons one by one, Song Yunxiu and Elijah suddenly felt that what they were worried about just now seemed to be a little laughable. Elijah moved the corner of his mouth and looked at Song Yunxiu. "Yunxiu, are we still going to attack?" Song Yunxiu's eyes that were hidden under his brown glasses seemed to fluctuate for a moment, but then returned to normal. "That's it. Let's go back." After a pause, Song Yunxiu continued, "If that's the case, we probably won't be detained by the people in the space station." In the bullet screen, the winged Radiant Bearer suddenly retracted. The Dark Assault's body sank and disappeared from the enemy's vision. By the time the Xeon and the Nazca-class high-speed warship reacted, it was already too late. The Dark Assault's muzzle was pointed at the Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge at almost zero distance. "General," as the scorching light beam bloomed, the Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge was penetrated on the spot. In the next second, the colorful light wings spread out again. However, below the unfolded light wings was the scene of a Nazca-class high-speed warship being engulfed in an explosion. The Dark Assault easily broke through the barrage formed by Xeon and the NASCAR-class high-speed battleships. The scene of a NASCAR-class high-speed battleships exploding with a single blow made everyone in the Troy space station gasp involuntarily. Some even subconsciously looked in Celine's direction. Dr. Celine's work is actually so terrifying Isn't the Radiant Bearer a project designed for deep space development? Why is it so terrifying when used in battle? In an instant, these discussions gradually reached Celine's ears. A bitter smile appeared on Celine's lips. Sorry, Dr. Celine. I made the decision without permission. Of course, Lake has heard these discussions. No, Miss Audrey, you don't need to apologize. Perhaps this is inevitable. In today's world, no cutting-edge technology can escape the whirlpool of war. Rather than giving the Radiant Bearer to Earth Union or Zaft, I'd rather give it to you. Perhaps Celine had already expected some things. So after the bitter smile, Celine's gaze became firm. Is that so? Perhaps we are not the people you can entrust it to. This sentence, Lakis did not say out loud. 1, 2, 3. The white cat's tail shook slightly. With great interest, it counted the achievements of the Dark Assault since the beginning of the battle. Oh, Kai, the Xeon on the left. Yes, it wants to run. Kill it. The white cat's sharp eyes immediately saw the Xeon that wanted to escape back to the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship. Without hesitation, just a stream of light swept across the space that was gradually filled with the destruction of the Xeon and the Nazca-class high-speed warship. The Xeon that was trying to escape suddenly exploded. Oh, the 10th one. One more minute until the battery pack of the new toy runs out. The last Xeon and the last Nazca-class high-speed warship. With a spread of light wings, the Dark Assault drew a spiral trajectory among the floating destruction and rushed towards the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship at an extremely fast speed. As long as this warship was destroyed, then the remaining Xeon would not be able to make any waves. Perhaps the Dark Assault's performance before had scared everyone on this Nazca-class high-speed warship out of their wits. As soon as they saw the Dark Assault dragging an afterimage, the moment it approached at high speed, regardless of whether it was useful or not, all the weapons on this Nazca-class high-speed warship immediately fired at the Dark Assault. 220 millimeters, single high-energy, converging fire cannons continuously roared. 266 millimeters dual railguns fired continuously. 1058 millimeters automatic defense cannons even unleashed their potential, pulling out a barrage of bullets that blocked the surrounding airspace of the Nazca-class high-speed warship. As for the 450 millimeters vertical firing system, due to its slow reloading speed, it could not combine with the other weapons in time to attack the Dark Assault. However, even if the 450 millimeters vertical firing system could launch an attack in time, it was already too late. The extreme speed of the flying wing-type Radiant Bearer was enough to ignore the Nazca-class high-speed warship's final struggle. Just like before, it easily appeared in front of the remaining Nazca-class high-speed warship's bridge. The moment the Dark Assault's muzzle emitted light again, it was the moment the Xeon fell into despair. Boom! The light wings disappeared in an instant, and the last Nazca-class high-speed warship was also dragged into the underworld by the explosion. Having lost its last hope, the Xeon went crazy. In the last light of the Nazca-class high-speed warship, it charged towards the Dark Assault. In the end, the Dark Assault's beam sword only cut it in half. Oh, we won. The moment the Dark Assault killed the last enemy, the Troy space station erupted into cheers. Moreover, with the explosion of the Nazca-class high-speed warship, the interrupted communication began to recover. As soon as the communication was restored, the head of the Troy space station immediately sent an inquiry to Zaft and Plant. In the end, the station master was shocked. Plant's highest council, and even the National Defense Committee, never gave Zaft the order to attack the Troy space station. This was a reply from Plant's highest council. At the same time, it also left the head of the station in a perplexing dilemma. However, at this moment, an unfamiliar spaceship suddenly appeared. Chapter 600. Matthias, a man hidden behind the shadows of the world. Perhaps, if it hadn't been for the shocking change back then, this man might have continued to follow the instructions of his deceased mother. Wearing the robe that symbolized the leader of the clan, sitting on the seat that represented the dignity of the clan leader and issuing orders that would determine the future of the clan to the people in the name of the clan. It seemed that there was no difference. However, the clan followed the ancient tradition to determine who would be the future leader. And this ancient tradition was a matriarchal social structure that had disappeared from modern human history. That's right. The tradition of the clan was to elect a qualified woman to become the leader of the clan. This was where the problem lay. Matthias was a man, but from the day he was born, his gender was concealed by his mother, the former clan leader, and he was declared to be her, a baby girl named Matthias. When she was pushed to the throne of the clan leader, the mother who concealed and tampered with the baby boy also passed away. At that time, only the maid who was personally appointed and trained by his mother knew the secret of the clan leader named Matthias. However, whether it was his mother or Matthias, who ascended to the position of matriarch with a female appearance under the name of Matthias, neither of them expected that this supposedly loyal maid would be the culprit who caused Matthias' mask to shatter. Rebellion. A rebellion was launched with the maid as the center. Matthias lost Matthias' mask on that day and became a stray dog that fled in panic. From then on, he lived in fear. So, in a coincidental opportunity, he swore to take revenge. He wanted to take revenge on the enemy who raised the blade of rebellion against him. Sir, the two Nazca-class high-speed warships and the Xeon they carried have all been killed. In front of him was the scene of the battle that happened at the Troy space station. A dark attack, an MS manufactured based on the technology developed by the United Earth Federation, could erupt with such terrifying combat power. Was this the strength of the pilot, or was it because of the pair of light wings? Matthias didn't know. However, under this powerful force, Matthias felt that the time for revenge might have come. Send an identification signal to the Troy space station. We want to meet the pilot of the MS, Matthias. The moment Ray Minkai heard this name, his eyes turned cold. Now that the librarian was the main culprit behind the creation of Lux's photocopies, Matthias, an important figure of the clan behind the librarian, actually appeared before him. Nice to meet you, Sir Kai Brittany. The Troy space station did not allow Matthias' spaceship to enter the space station. Instead, it took a compromise and allowed both parties to send an airship to conduct the meeting under the watchful eyes of both parties. Nice to meet you, Matthias. Compared to Matthias, who had shown a friendly attitude during their first meeting, Ray Minkai's attitude was much colder. However, Matthias did not mind at all, because he knew the reason behind this series of events. Perhaps I can understand Sir Guy's pain of being forced to leave his hometown. As an opening remark, Matthias did not hide the fact that he knew Ray Minkai's sore spot. Leave home? Matthias, I don't understand what you're talking about. Little did he know that Matthias' self-righteous behavior was a signal to Ray Minkai. Matthias in front of him did not seem to know of Lux Klein's existence. Instead, he thought of him as a heroic young man. Yes. After all, this world is not as perfect as it seems. If Matthias is here to perform, I'm afraid not many people here will be willing to watch your performance. Ray Minkai frowned and suddenly realized that the man in front of him, who was dressed neither like a man nor a woman, and whose face was even more feminine, did not seem to be as vicious as he imagined. Is it a deviation in his memory about the librarian? No. Sorry. This is just a spur of the moment. Sir Kai. When Matthias saw Ray Minkai was about to leave, he immediately changed his appearance. Under the feminine makeup was a serious and deep gaze. Sir Kai Brittany, you should know the name Ray Minkai, right? So what if I know? So what if I don't know? Although Ray Minkai did not admit it, Matthias already understood. Yes, Ray Minkai is a hero. In order to protect the Princess of Plant, he did not hesitate to sacrifice his life to protect Lux Klein. I admire him very much. However, the heroes in this world are not as perfect as imagined. Matthias' voice was powerful. Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows, but he was secretly glad that he did not let Lux come here with him. Yes, Ray Minkai is just a hero created by humans. Furthermore, He didn't sacrifice his life to protect Lux Clay as Plant and Zaf claimed. Having said that, Matthias glanced at Ray Minkai, but he found that Ray Minkai's expression was extremely calm, and his eyes were even more calm. Is that all? Matthias. At this point, Ray Minkai had already understood Matthias' intention. Is it nothing more than wanting to recruit me to join Matthias' team? Become a member of the Librarian? Or is it participate in the battle of revenge against the clan? The more Ray Minkai interacted with Matthias, the more memories of the Librarian and the clan behind the Librarian appeared in his mind. No, I don't have any other intentions. Matthias was interrupted, but he was not angry. Instead, he took the initiative to send 3 sets of information to Ray Minkai. This is about Ray Minkai's actions after the Silver Wind incident. This is the information about the mastermind behind the Silver Wind incident. Matthias' finger tapped heavily on the 3rd set of information. This is the culprit that caused everything to happen. Having said that, Matthias got up and prepared to leave. There's a way to contact us at the end of the information. I hope we will have the opportunity to witness the birth of a hero with our own eyes. The airship carrying Matthias slowly returned to the unfamiliar spaceship under Ray Minkai's gaze. However, the documents left behind by Matthias set off thousands of waves in Ray Minkai's heart. Ray Minkai did not open the information about his own movements, nor did he open the information about the mastermind behind the Silver Wind incident. Instead, he opened the 3rd set of information. But as he opened this set of information, Ray Minkai saw a shocking secret that had never appeared in the settings of Gauda's Seed. At least half of the 12 members of the Plant Supreme Council had been replaced by the Librarian's photocopies. Moreover, on the eve of these photocopies being replaced, all of them had been ordered to assist Patrick Sala, either openly or secretly. In other words, the current Plant Supreme Council was not what outsiders thought it was, where Patrick Sala's faction was too strong, causing the Klein faction to have no choice but to compromise temporarily. Instead, the Plant Supreme Council had long been dominated by the pro-war faction represented by Patrick Sala. Hey, Kai, was that androgynous fellow lying to them? If Plant had been controlled by Patrick Sala, the situation would have been out of control by now. White Cat State Zero emerged from the shadows and stretched its little head to look at the information in Ray Minkai's hands. White Cat State Zero was shocked when it saw the information about Patrick Sala. Maybe it's fake, but maybe it's true. Don't forget about the existence of Miss E. Ray Minkai closed the information in his hands and returned to the cockpit of the airship. Maybe? I hope so. But didn't that arrogant guy with glasses also bring back a piece of information? White Cat State Zero jumped lightly and landed on the cockpit. Chow. That's true. This unexpected meeting did surprise Ray Minkai. But after recovering the relevant memories, Ray Minkai became much calmer. Because the most terrifying thing was that the Librarian, Plant, and Zaft had fallen into the hands of Miss E. This was no big deal. In fact, it was the same. After the information in Song Yunwei's hands was given to Ray Minkai to compare the 2 pieces of information, the situation was indeed the worst. Miss E, who was hiding behind the scenes, had unknowingly completed the capture of Plant and Zaft. As long as she was willing, perhaps in the next second, the next moment, or even tomorrow, she could completely expand the war with Earth. Have the members of the Supreme Council been replaced by the photocopies? Just like me? After weighing the pros and cons, Ray Minkai still handed the information in his hands to Lakis. And the latter, after carefully flipping through the information, looked at Ray Minkai without sadness or joy. Kai, can you tell me everything you know? Ray Minkai moved the corner of his mouth, but did not know where to start. It seems that things are more serious than I thought. Am I right? Ray Minkai looked at Lakis's bitter smile and nodded silently. Yes, but now I'm not completely sure that things have developed to the worst point. Let's go. Kai. Suddenly, Lakis stood up and looked at Ray Minkai with a firm expression. Audrey, since you're not completely sure, then use your eyes to see everything you suspect, and then tell me the correct answer. Kai. In a flash, Ray Minkai realized the meaning of Lakis's words. Lakis, you mean to go back to plant? No way. The Klein faction's power is not as weak as it seems. In fact, our family has also set up a hidden force in plant. Ray Minkai's decisive rejection did not make Lakis back down. Instead, her will was unusually firm. My father once told me that if possible, he did not want to use them. If possible, Klein would even forget about them. But now perhaps it's time. Lakis looked up and stared straight into Lei Minkai's eyes without any hesitation. Kai, returning to plant isn't just about you. It's also about me. Kai, promise your little princess. At most, I'll protect her from the side. The white cat's words rang in his ears, and Ray Minkai had no choice but to agree. However, the situation would not improve. Another mission? Infiltrating plant? Zhao, are you crazy? Lolita Yaja screamed and looked in disbelief at Song Yunxiao, who had accepted a new mission without saying a word. One had to know that the previous mission that risked his life did not even receive a return, and he immediately accepted another one. Moreover, it was issued by the same person. Zhao, can you tell me what's going on? Lita Weiler also expressed his opinion. The recycler, Paul Jewell, had already gone to plant when we arrived. Moreover, the mission he accepted was to escort the son of Yuri Amifai, one of the 12 members of the Supreme Council, Nigger Amifai, back to his country. Song Yunxiao's words made his companions come to a realization. 12 members? That? Lolita Zhou was stunned for a moment, then helplessly covered her forehead and sighed. It seems that we can't cut ties with the Supreme Council in a short period of time. That's true. Lita Weiler clapped his hands and then winked at Song Yunxiao. Zhao's previous arrangement should be effective now. Effective? Who? Elijah was a little confused. Lolita Yaja helplessly rolled her eyes. It's that toy from Earth United. It's Swain. Not long ago, I sent him to Plant's April City. Using the mission as an excuse, I want him to stay there for at least half a month. Elijah was shocked by Song Yunxiao's words. At the same time, it also shocked Ray Minkai. Song Yunxiao. You actually let Earth United's tools stay in Plant's April City? Can't there be any accidents? No. Swain isn't as stubborn as those toys. Probably, the brainwashing he went through isn't too complete. Song Yunxiao's answer made Lei Minka frown, but he did not say anything in the end. Swain had already been handed over to Song Yunxiao, so it was up to him to make the arrangements. If you've made the arrangements on your side, then let's go. Ray Minkai looked at the time and realized that it was already very late. With the help of Serena and the others, Dark Assault had already transferred to the mothership of Giant Snake's Tail. Next, Ray Minkai and Lakis would interplant with the help of Giant Snake's Tail. This was the only feasible method at the moment. Sir Kai, due to time constraints, we can only prepare 5 battery packs for the Winged Radiance Bearer. Please use them with caution. Serena did not know too much about the details, but when she saw Lakis's serious expression, she knew that what was about to happen would not be good. Okay, got it. Ray Minkai nodded, and Lakis, who was standing beside him, looked around and said softly, "Let's go. Back to plant." Chapter 601. On the clean and quiet street, a figure with sunglasses and red hair was walking quickly through the street and came to the door of a house with white walls. Click! The figure quickly scanned the surroundings. After confirming that no one was following him, he opened the door and returned to the room they called the safe house. "You're back. How's today's harvest?" Inside the house, a young man who was fiddling with a confusing device raised his head and glanced at the figure before casually greeting him. "Well, it's still the same. The security of the Research Institute is much stricter than I remember." The sunglasses were taken off, and the red hair faded, and a handsome face appeared in front of others. He was Nickel Amifai, who had returned to the capital of Plant, April City, with the help of Law and everyone in the recycling house not long ago. However, Nickel, who used disguise and other means to hide his identity, went to the research lab where his father, Yuri Amifai, was located. he found that at the intersection 100 meters away from the research institute, there was already a group of ZAF soldiers interrogating vehicles and pedestrians coming and going. This discovery made Nickel's attempt to sneak into the research lab and face his father, Yuri Amify, directly fail. In the following days, many attempts to enter the research institute in different ways still failed. Nigel could not help but feel depressed. Law, what about the professor? The teenager who was sitting on the floor, fiddling with an unknown device, waved his hand casually. Professor? They seem to have gone out. They will be back later. You don't have to worry. At this moment, little Hatchie, the AI placed next to Law, said a message. Nickel, according to the analysis of the news announced by the Plant Supreme Council during this period, there are some anomalies in the decision of the Supreme Council. Little Hatchie's words made Nickel confused, and when he looked at little Hatchie's master, Law, the latter was also inexplicable. Nickel, don't look at me. I only know how to fiddle with these machines. I don't understand little Hatchie's inexplicable speech from time to time. Law spread out his greasy hands, showing a helpless expression. This made Nigel smile bitterly. During the time he was back in April City, he had seen how strange this ragtag army was compared to the army. Oh, right. Before the professor left, she seemed to have left you a message. Law seemed to have suddenly remembered something and pointed to the table not far away. There, a CD lay quietly on the table. Nikor, who was confused, picked up the CD and went back to his room. When he was ready to see what was in it, he saw a note under the CD. This is... The weather in April City was still as mild as he remembered. As Lakis sat in the elevator that descended from the port to the city, she couldn't help but feel nostalgic as she looked at the lush green city below. Especially after everything she had experienced, people, things, and even the cold and hot climate on Earth. When she faced the unchanging warmth of April City, an indescribable sense of loss lingered in her heart. Audrey. Ray Minkai's voice came from behind. Lakis looked back and found that the people around her were talking about the silver mask Ray Minkai was wearing at the moment. From those whispers, it was not difficult for Lakis to hear that the people around her seemed to regard Ray Minkai's wearing of a mask as some kind of idol worship. And this so-called idol might be the man most valued by the current chairman of the National Defense Force, who would also be the new chairman of the Plant Supreme Council, Patrick Sala, Lao Lu Kreutzer. Everyone thinks you're a fan of Captain Kreutzer. Lakis retracted her gaze and looked at Ray Minkai with a smile. Maybe, as long as I wear a mask, this is inevitable. Ray Minkai, on the other hand, was quite open-minded. After all, Ray Minkai couldn't use the holographic image necklace to disguise himself like Lakis, so he could only use a mask to cover his face. Fortunately, with the influence of Patrick Sala sweeping through Plant, Ray Minkai quickly gained a good reputation in Zaft and even among the people of Plant. The masked Ray Minkai was not treated as a weirdo. Even when passing through the port security check, the surrounding Zaft soldiers gave Ray Minkai a knowing look of encouragement. This situation made Ray Minkai dumbfounded. After the small teasing between the two, Lakis' expression became a little lonely. Kai, tell me, is it really okay for everyone to stay here? The scorching desert, the high and cold snowy mountains, the vast sky, and the cold and mysterious extreme north brought an impact to Lakis that she had yet to fully digest. After seeing how vast the outside world was, after Lakis returned to April City and Plant, she suddenly had a feeling that the colonial satellite, which was regarded as the home of the adjusters, might be a cage. Now, there's nothing bad about it. Ray Minkai knew what Lakis was thinking at the moment, but according to the situation in the outside world, the situation of the adjusters gathering together for warmth was already the trend. Is there nothing bad about it? Lakis lowered her gaze and shook her head silently. Perhaps gathering together for warmth was the only feasible way now. But what next? 1 year, 2 years, or even 5 years? What about 10 years later? Solidifying one's footsteps and vision in these colonial satellites, using the thoughts of the victims to limit one's identity, to gain sympathy from the outside world. Lakis' gaze couldn't help but dim. If that was the case, the citizens who fixed themselves in these colonial satellites would probably become the victims of some people. Ding dong. The orbital elevator reached its destination. When the cool breeze of April City gently caressed Lake's hair again, it also pulled her thoughts back to reality. Let's go. Audrey, Zhao, and the others are still waiting for us. Half an hour later, Ray Mingkai and Lakis walked along the main road and arrived in front of a small house. On the lawn in front of the house, an old man was sitting leisurely on a wrought-tan chair, ignoring Ray Mingkai and Lakis who were standing in front of him. This old man, may I ask if Song Yunxiao and the others live here? When Lei Mingkai saw the old man's posture, some images that were buried deep in his memory quietly came to mind. As expected, no matter how Ray Mingkai asked, the old man still didn't respond and continued to sit leisurely on the wrought-tan chair, rocking back and forth. Kai, let me try. Lakis volunteered, but was stopped by Ray Mingkai. No, there's no need. Lakis, that guy Zhao is coming out. As soon as Ray Mingkai finished speaking, the door of the house was knocked open from the inside out. Bang! As the door was slammed open, a figure rolled to the ground. This scene made Ray Mingkai and Lakis look at each other. The figure who rolled to the ground was the young man Ray Mingkai and Lakis had only met once, Swain Carlbein. The young man who had almost died at the hands of Ray Mingkai had rolled out of the house and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Swain, before you figure out, stay outside. While they were puzzled, Song Yunxiao's voice came from the house. Song Yunxiao, what happened? Upon hearing Song Yunxiao's voice, Ray Mingkai asked loudly. This voice? Is it Kai? It's me. What happened? With Song Yunxiao here, everything was easy. Lei Mingkai no longer paid any attention to the almost transparent old man. He walked past Sherwan, who was struggling to get up, to the door of the small house, and asked Song Yunxiao, who was walking out of the house. It's just a small matter. Song Yunxiao said subconsciously, then corrected himself. Swain hasn't left this house in the past half a month since he came here. He hasn't left this house in half a month. Ray Mingkai and Lakis were surprised. Swain Carlbein wasn't the kind of person who could stay at home, right? Yes, if not for old Bart, this guy would have starved to death. Song Yunxiao was exasperated. However, Swain, who stood up again, patted the dust off his body expressionlessly and stood there without retorting or speaking. Even Ray Mingkai felt a headache when he saw Swain's stubborn appearance, let alone Song Yunxiao. Yunxiao, let this young man stay here. Let me have something to do. At this moment, the old man who hadn't responded to Ray Mingkai's question suddenly spoke. It seemed like he wanted to plead on Swain's behalf. The corners of Song Yunxiao's eyes twitched a few times, but he still nodded silently and agreed to the old man's request. Thank you. I'll let this young man stay in the house. He won't disturb you. The old man seemed to have sensed something. After making a solemn promise, he slowly stood up from the wrought-tan chair and walked to Swain's side. He pulled Swain away and turned to walk into the house next door. After watching the old man and young man leave, Song Yunxiao slowly heaved a sigh of relief. I didn't expect the famous leader of Giant Serpent's Tail to be like this. Swain Carlbein's fate might have changed at this moment. It's just a moment of melancholy. All right, Kai, Miss Audrey, we've already obtained the information you wanted. Please come in and talk. Half an hour later, Ray Mingkai and Lakis, who were sitting on the sofa, were called in by Lolita Yaja. Their attention was attracted by a document. The first thing they saw when they opened the document was a photo. It was a photo that caused Ray Mingkai and Lakis' expressions to change drastically. In the photo was the gentle pink princess and a young man with bandages on his head. His face was pale, but Ray Mingkai and Lakis were extremely familiar with him. This is Kira. In an instant, Ray Mingkai and Lakis recognized the young man's true identity. However, compared to Lakis' shock, Ray Mingkai's attention was on something else. This photo, is it safe? Yes. The pink princess in the photo was undoubtedly an imposter, but the person who took this photo was probably not an ordinary person, right? Lolita Yaja glanced at Song Yunxiao, and after obtaining his approval, she spoke the truth. The source of this photo was a servant working in the Klein faction's official residence. However, when we obtained this photo, we didn't interact with the servant. Instead, we obtained it from a secret base that we had agreed on a few years ago, but wasn't very stable. Servant? What about the servant? Lakis hurriedly asked. Lolita Yaja shook her head. I'm not sure. However, we didn't receive any response from the other party after that. Perhaps, has she been discovered? Seeing Lolita Yaja's expression, Ray Minkai could guess what happened to the servant. If they were not missing, then they had already been murdered. How can that be? I don't even know who that servant is. Lakis's gaze wavered slightly as she looked at the smiling face in the photo. That was her face, but she was unknowingly maintaining an intimate relationship with a young man named Kira Yamato, who was also Aslan Sarah's good friend. We don't know who that servant is. However, what we do know is that the Klein faction's little princess seems to have betrayed the engagement she had made since she was young. What? Lakis raised her head abruptly and stared straight at Lolita Yaja. Cough. From our observations over the past few days, we found out that ever since the young man in the photo was sent to the Klein family, the little princess hasn't appeared in public apart from necessary official activities. Lolita Yaja's narration caused Lakis's heart to gradually sink to the bottom. Behind the actions of the imposter who pretended to be her, the leader of the Klein faction, which was her father, Siegel Klein, had probably been controlled by the other party. The more Lakis thought about it, the more terrified she felt. She couldn't help but feel her hands and feet turn cold. Just as the piercing coldness engulfed Lakis's entire body, a wave of warmth quietly covered her hands. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Ray Minkai's voice rang softly in Lakis's ears, calming her gradually panicking heart that was worried about her father's situation. Ray Minkai shook his head slightly and said with certainty, I will make arrangements. After saying that, Ray Minkai looked at Song Yunxiang. Yunxiang, I wonder if you can contact Luo and arrest. Song Yunxiang's gaze shifted from a young man in the photo to Ray Minkai and nodded with certainty. Yes. Chapter 602. Ripples would appear on the calm surface of the lake from time to time, shattering the tranquil atmosphere again and again. It added a hint of vitality to the tranquil scene that was like a famous painting. There were several people sitting on the benches by the lake. They weren't sitting side by side, but were sitting on the front and back of the bench. From afar, these people didn't seem to have much to do with each other. They just happened to be sitting on the same bench. This place has changed. On the side of the bench, facing the lake, a young man wearing a cap and a pair of wide sunglasses let out a soft sigh. People couldn't help but think that this girl might have returned to her hometown that she had left for a long time. Sigh. Yes, this place has changed. It has become unrecognizable. Don't you think so? K. The bench's back was facing the lake, and on the side facing the forest, there was a man and woman leaning against each other. In the man's arms, the girl with long black hair also let out a similar sigh. Yes, this place might not be the April city that we know. The man sighed, but this is our hometown. The young man seemed to be responding to the man's words and sighed softly. But the people here are no longer the people we are familiar with. A document was quietly passed from under the bench to the young man's hand. The moment the breeze blew across the lake, the young man's eyes hidden behind the sunglasses were already filled with shock. Is it the imprint? As the lake rippled and the fallen leaves rolled up, the document in the young man's hand was closed. If that's the case, everything makes sense. The people we are familiar with are no longer the people we are familiar with. It's just that they have changed into familiar faces. The document was passed back to the man from under the bench. Then, what do you think we should do? Leave his place? The man looked at the document in his hand and sighed softly. No, I want to save the people I am familiar with. Even though you don't know their current situation, the girl raised her head from the man's arms and looked at the rippling lake. Not knowing means that there is still a glimmer of hope, right? Moreover, isn't your father's condition unclear as well? The youth slowly raised his head and looked at the curvature of the land in the distance. In this colonial satellite, as long as he found a right angle and knew the direction, he might be able to use a telescope to see the place he wanted to see. And the place where the young man's gaze landed just happened to be the girl's home. The house named Klein. Hearing this, the girl's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. Truth be told, one of the reasons she risked being discovered and returned to April City was to find out if her father was still alive. Do you have a plan? The man gently held the girl's small hand and asked softly. Yes, yes. However, I need some time and your help. Me? The young man's words stunned the man. The young man chuckled. Of course. Only if the knight who guards the princess personally takes action will the plan have a chance of success. The man lowered his gaze and looked at the girl. In just a short moment, the man opened his mouth and replied, Good. I need to know everything about the plan. Of course. After all, this is a choice that will determine the future. The Klein family. Sienna didn't know how long he had been under house arrest. Since his daughter Lakis recovered, he had been secretly under house arrest in this house for a period of time. During this period of time, unbeknownst to him, the servants he was familiar with and the Klein family he was familiar with had become a completely unfamiliar scene. Even though his treatment as the head of the Klein family had never decreased by a single bit. Lakis, are you still alive? Across the windowsill, Sienna clearly saw the pink girl chatting with the unfamiliar girl in the glass house. That face, that figure, it was clearly his precious daughter, Lakis Klein. But Sienna knew that it was just a fake Lakis Klein. What? Father, are you interested in watching the performance of dolls today? At this time, a familiar but slightly different voice sounded. Upon hearing the voice, Sienna returned to her seat and didn't say another word. She didn't bother with the person who came, either, as though nothing could get through to her. But the person wasn't angry. Instead, he excitedly handed a document to Sienna. Father, this is a proposal recently passed by the Supreme Council. The document was flipped open. A name marked with thick black ink deeply stung Sienna's eyes. Spit Break Battle Plan. This was the battle plan that the Klein faction led by Sienna Klein had always opposed. In Sienna's view, this battle plan was undoubtedly a ticking time bomb that pushed the entire war into an irreversible abyss. Therefore, when Sienna was the head of the Supreme Council, this battle plan had always been suppressed under the table. Is Patra crazy? This will destroy the entire world. Sienna's reaction was obviously within the person's expectations. Her pink hair fluttered gently, and her beautiful face was brimming with a confident smile. No, Father, this is just the prelude to our king. This world won't be destroyed. It will just welcome a new master. New master? Sienna's eyes widened in anger. She suddenly got up, pulled open the curtains, and pointed at the glass house below. Him? Sienna's anger stunned the pink figure, who was Mia, for a moment. But then she laughed out loud. Father, you're really good at joking. Him? He's just called the person who emphasizes the most. Apart from that, what's the difference between him and a mortal? In my heart, Aslan Saleh is more qualified to have the title of the strongest. At this moment, the smile on Mia's face became even more charming. Yes. Aslan Sarah was more qualified than anyone else, even more so than the so-called strongest regulator below. He deserved the title of the strongest more than anyone else. Only then will he become the king of this world. You're crazy. This was the first time Sienna learned from Mia that she was under house arrest here and seemed to have taken control of the Supreme Council. Crazy? Father. In the past, when I was just an ordinary girl, I did admire Lux Klein and thought that Lux Klein's ideals were the truth that could save the world. But when I woke up from the darkness, I realized that this world isn't as gentle as Lux Klein said. It's much bigger, more terrifying, and more cruel. Mia smiled softly, but said something that Sienna couldn't understand. But Mia didn't care whether Sienna could understand or not. After saying something, she slowly retreated and returned to the door. Today's greetings end here. Father, please wait for a moment. After all, our king still needs some time. The next moment, the door closed. Sir, there's news from Yuri Amify. Freedom and justice have gone offline. They can start the pre-service test at any time. An expressionless man stood by the aisle and bowed to Mia. Yes, let's begin. Then, guide the Supreme Council to transfer Aslan Saleh back. Yes, the roaring sound of machinery. Nervous and focused expressions. Loading trucks that moved along a fixed and long transportation track. And the parts that were slowly pulled from the ground into the air by the suspension cables. The armor was following the guidance of the program, moving in an orderly manner to gather all the parts and armor and create the final destination of the designer's dream. Senator Amify, the preparations are complete. Let's get ready to start the test. Yuri Amify rubbed his eyes, tried to soothe the intense work that had been going on for days. Although it made him very tired, but in this high-intensity work, he didn't have much time to think about the sadness of losing his own son. Yes, but according to the Supreme Council's request, it seems that we have to wait until Aslan Saleh returns before we can start the test of the Gauda of Justice. Aslan Saleh? It didn't matter if his subordinate didn't mention it, but when Aslan Saleh's name was mentioned, Yuri Amify immediately thought of his own son, Neil Amify. Whenever they met, Neil Amify would always mention Aslan Saleh's name. There was no doubt that to Neil Amify, Aslan Saleh was his best friend. As a father, Yuri Amify was very satisfied with this. But now, Aslan Saleh's name was the switch that triggered the grief in Yuri Amify's heart. Your Excellency? Knowing that he had said something wrong, the subordinate hurriedly opened his mouth and tried to correct his mistake, but was stopped by Yuri Amify. Okay, you guys are tired. Go and rest. The test of the Gauda of Justice will start tomorrow. Yes, then please have a good rest. His subordinates looked at each other for a while before they left with hesitant expressions. Yuri Amify naturally knew what his subordinates were thinking, but he didn't want to care about these things now. At this moment, a series of footsteps quietly came from behind. Yuri Amify didn't think much and said without turning his head, "Leave this to me. Go back and rest." However, the person behind him didn't respond to Yuri Amify's words. Instead, he took a few steps forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Yuri Amify. He raised his head and looked at the pitch-black body that was illuminated by many lights. Yes, this is the Gauda of Justice, as expected of my masterpiece. Perhaps only such a body can avenge my son. You, a familiar voice, a familiar tone. Also, when he turned around and looked back in that instant, he saw that face. Yuri Amify was stunned. That face was clearly his own face. What? Are you stunned when you see your face? Yuri Amify. The newcomer took a step forward so that Yuri Amify could see him clearly. You, who the hell are you? Guard! Guard! After Yuri Amify was stunned, he quickly pressed the warning button and tried to call the guard to catch the person who had the same face as him. Hee. Don't waste your energy. There's only one of my people here. Yuri Amify. The person smiled gently, but showed a different crazy aura from Yuri Amify. You, who the hell are you? Why are you exactly the same as me? Yuri Amify was one of the members of the Supreme Council after all, so he quickly regained his composure. Who am I? I am you. Alas, Nigger's departure is my sorrow, and it's also a sorrow that I still can't forget. However, the strength of this sorrow is not enough to comfort the resentful spirit of Nigger's tragic death. So I'm here to replace you, an incompetent father. The person stepped forward and bypassed Yuri Amify. After casually operating the console a few times, he expressed satisfaction with the many parameters that appeared on the screen. As expected of me, the initial parameters of the anti-neutron disruptor are set perfectly. Don't worry, I'll finish the rest of the work. Before Yuri Amify could say anything to stop the person, he fell to the ground under a sudden stab of pain. Moreover, before he completely fell into darkness, he heard the person say this. Yuri Amify, your life, your hatred, and your name, let me inherit it. You just have a good sleep. Yuri Amify, who was unconscious, was carried away on a stretcher by two strong men. The person who came put on the white coat that was taken from Yuri Amify and stood in front of the console. Following the original plan, he began to adjust the parameters of the pitch-black MS in front of him. Everything will become our salute to our king. With the input of the line of parameters, a murmur quietly sounded like worshiping a god. The brilliance of the artificial sun gradually dimmed. Now, it happened to be the night of the April city. A car drove along the main road into a fork in the road where there were few cars. After leaving the highway, it slowly drove into a parking lot where there weren't many cars. The door opened. A young man wearing a red shirt representing the elite status of Zaf stepped out of the car first, then went around the back of the car, opened the door on the other side, and extended his right hand into the car. The moment the white and flawless hand was placed on the hand of the young man in red, a beautiful girl wearing a purple gauze bottom and a white pleated skirt also stepped out of the car. The moment the man and woman stepped out of the car, a man wearing a green military uniform commonly seen in Zaft walked out of the room on the side. He stepped forward and saluted the two. "Sorry for the wait. Time is tight now. Please follow my footsteps." Hearing this, the man and woman looked at each other and nodded in unison. "Okay, please lead the way." Chapter 603. The pink girl in a white dress and the brown-haired boy who had already recovered from his injuries and changed into a red shirt walked out of Klein's house together. Under the escort of a motorcade, they slowly drove onto the highway to somewhere in April City. Looking at the scenery outside the window that kept retreating, Kira Yamato, who left Klein's house for the first time, suddenly felt that something was wrong. However, he couldn't tell what was wrong with it. "What's wrong, Kira?" A gentle question came from the side. It was the pink girl. During this period of time together, the gentle and considerate pink girl might have conquered Kira's heart. Every time he chatted with her, Kira couldn't help but forget about the time, and the pink girl seemed to be the only thing left in his eyes. "No, it's just that this is the first time I've seen the scenery here." Kira slightly retracted his gaze and said, as if he was reminiscing, "Before this, I've always lived in Aub's colonial satellite. That place is different from here. Is it?" The pink girl smiled softly. "Because this is everyone's home. Maybe it's different from the outside." Looking at the pink girl's smile, the faintly rolling irritation in Kira's heart disappeared without a trace. Behind the departing convoy, a group of people quietly appeared from the side of a small road. "The target has left. Based on speculation, there shouldn't be too many security guards at the target location." A group of figures with their faces covered by masks quickly occupied a favorable position and observed the surroundings, especially the movements in Klein's house. "Target confirmed. Correct as the intelligence. Snake, after we rescue the master, you retreat immediately. Leave the rest to us." After confirming the location of the target, the figures covered from head to toe began to move again. They quietly sneaked into Klein's house at a speed that shocked everyone in Giant Snake's tail. That movement, that accomplishment, even the seemingly inconspicuous equipment that could only be used by elite troops made Leto Weiler, who had once been in the Earth Alliance Army, shocked. "Chill. After the target is rescued, we'll leave immediately." Leto Weiler showed a rare, serious expression, which made Song Yunxiu nod involuntarily. Those people had no intention of leaving. After rescuing the target, these people would stay here to attract the enemy's attention and provide cover for the target's retreat. On the other side, the operation that Neil and Law were in charge of was the same. However, the task of attracting attention was left to Ray Mingkai. Puff, pooh, a series of muffled footsteps could be heard. Along the way, there were a few subtle gunshots that had been processed by silencers. In the bright corridor, there were fallen bodies and people who were silently and quickly passing through the corridor, running toward the target's room. Sienna stood in front of the window, as usual, and looked down at the empty glass house. He knew that when a young girl who had the same face and voice as Lux, and claimed to be Mia, brought the Supreme Council's decision to him, the plan that the Klein faction had been preparing for a long time had also been put into motion. However, the executor now wasn't him, nor was it Lakis Klein. Instead, It was a fake with the same face and voice, as well as an unfamiliar young man who was bewitched. Pooh! Suddenly, a muffled sound came from outside the door. It was the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. Who is it? Sienna's eyes flashed. He walked to the side of the table and reached under the table with his right hand. If it was that Mia who came, there wouldn't be such a weird and unsettling sound. Is it an attack? The moment this thought appeared in Siegel's mind, she couldn't help but associate it with Patrick Sala. His best friend, who was already driven by hatred, was probably going to kill him. Pooh! Pooh! In the midst of the flying sawdust, the door was violently slammed open. You guys! Although they were all wrapped up in black masks and clothes, Klein could see that there was an icon on their collars and cuffs that required a bit of concentration to notice. You guys actually came? How? That was the Klein family's final trump card. Only the current head of the family and the heir who had received the inheritance could use this trump card. Even though this trump card was viewed by Klein as a trump card that could allow him to turn the tables in times of crisis, the Klein family had never used it before. Even though the Klein family had faced many crises in the past, they had never used it before. Head of the family, this is the first time we've met, and also the last time we've met. Please make good use of the time and retreat with us. Sienna couldn't see their faces clearly, but she could tell from their positions that the person who spoke to her seemed to be the leader of the group. Before Sienna could react, two of the men in black stepped forward to protect her and followed behind the large group of men who retreated from the room. This was an ambush-style rescue operation. In order to rescue Siegel Klein in the shortest time possible, the silent men in black didn't adopt the method of controlling the entire Klein family before rescuing them. Therefore, when the enemy reacted to the situation, their actions of retreating quickly were obstructed. First squad, stay where you are. Second squad, third squad, change your route. Inform Snake to head to the nearest evacuation point and evacuate the target. Understood. Sienna, who was firmly protected, watched their actions without saying a word and obediently followed their footsteps. He didn't expect that these people would be mobilized under such circumstances. The only one who could mobilize them, apart from himself, was Lux Klein, whom he had repeatedly warned when she was young. In that case, she was the only one who could mobilize these people. Lux really didn't die. Gunshots swept through the corridor like a storm and resounded in the sky above the Klein family. Amidst the gunshots, a few grenades rolled to the ground amidst the hail of bullets, setting off explosions that could tear lives apart. Quick! 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 The path has been cleared. Let Lady Sienna retreat. The path to escape from the Klein family had been opened. The men in black immediately split into a 5-man squad and rushed out of the Klein family's residence while protecting Sienna. Outside the door, the van driven by the giant snake's tail had arrived. The car door opened, and a face covered by brown glasses appeared in front of Sienna Klein. Sienna Klein, get in the van. We have to evacuate immediately. Siegel nodded. With the man's help, she quickly boarded the van. Snake, I'll leave Lady Sienna to you. Please. A trace of admiration appeared under the brown glasses. Song Yunxiao nodded vigorously. Leave it to us. Good luck. With a light laugh, the door was slammed shut by the other party. Let's go. The engine started, and the van rushed into another path amidst the hail of bullets. Quick! Quick! After repelling the enemy's attacks, use the villa as a stronghold and build defensive fortifications. Don't let the enemy know that Lady Sienna has left. Yes. Sienna looked at the smoke rising into the air and slowly retracted her gaze. She looked at the young man sitting in front of her. Despite the brown glasses covering his face, Sienna vaguely felt that the outline of his face was somewhat familiar. You are? Giant Snake's tail, Song Yunxiao. Song Yunxiao seemed to have noticed something and displayed a cold expression that kept people at arm's length. Seeing this, Sienna didn't persist in arguing with Song Yunxiao about his identity. It's Kay. Kay entrusted us to save you, even though we didn't play much of a role in the rescue process. Song Yunxiao glanced at Siegel, who appeared to be hesitant to speak, but in the end, refrained from asking and revealed the truth. Kay, Upon hearing this name, Sienna roughly guessed the truth. She didn't expect that not only did the real Lux not die in the Silverwind incident, but even the heroic Ray Minkai that Patrick and the others had promoted didn't die either. In that case, the reason Lux was able to escape death was probably because of Ray Minkai's protection. Moreover, from the way Tsung Yin-xiao and the others acted, Ray Minkai seemed to have a lot of influence. Is that so? I didn't expect the princess to find a knight. I'll leave the rest to you. Don't worry. We'll send you to a safe place. Da-da-da. Gunshots and screams continued to ring out. Corpses were scattered all over the aisle, giving the attackers a headache. Kacha. Nigger skillfully removed the empty magazine and replaced it with a new one. Then, he carefully looked into the depths of the aisle. It had been 10 minutes since they launched the attack. When they were just a step away from achieving their goal, the enemy's forces here exceeded Nigger's expectations. Nigger Amify. I just received news that the Snake's operation has been completed. They are now covering Sir Sienna Klein's retreat. A man in black came to Nigger's back and said softly, "Okay, I got it." Nigger nodded, then took a deep breath and gave the order that he didn't want to give. "Attack. We don't have much time left." "Yes." Da-da-da-da. The next moment, gunshots rang out. The grenades were thrown high in the bright fire, flew across the aisle, and fell at the feet of the enemies who were blocking Nigger's attack. Boom! Boom! In the midst of several explosions, several men in black rushed out from Nigger's side and launched a fierce attack against the rain of bullets. Nigger and other men in black who stayed behind provided firepower support for their companions who were attacking. Blood splashed, and the bodies fell to the ground. After paying the price of several men in black who were killed on the spot, Nigger and his men finally broke the enemy's last resistance. Is it here? The strong smell of blood filled his nostrils, and the usually elegant Nigger had a hint of murderous intent. Yes, if the intelligence is correct, the members who are still alive are imprisoned here. Are they still alive? Nigger took a few deep breaths and nodded. Open it. Ka, 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 ka. The heavy iron door was slowly opened. As the lights on the aisle scattered through the gap of the iron gate, familiar faces appeared in front of Nigger. That's right. The counselors of the highest council were indeed imprisoned here. However, there were still a few faces missing among these members. Had they been killed? And Nigger Amify? When Nigger looked at those haggard members who seemed to have been under house arrest for a certain period of time, a pair of surprised eyes looked at Nigger, who was standing under the light, in disbelief. Nigger Amify, is it really you? The crowd surged, and a figure squeezed in front of Nigger. You, father? When he saw the appearance of the person, Nigger was surprised. Yes, it's me. Nigger, you not dead? Yuli Amify looked at Nigger, who was in good condition, with a surprised face. Nigger nodded, but he knew that it was not a good time to catch up. Father, and all the members, please act immediately. We don't have much time. We must evacuate from here in the shortest time possible. In addition, Sir Siegel Klein has been rescued. What? Nigger's words caused everyone to be shocked, but they knew that they could not stay here any longer. During this period of inexplicable imprisonment, many people learned some news from the other counselors who were later imprisoned. And this news was more or less completed with the arrival of Yuli Amify. Someone was using his clone to control Plant Supreme Council, and even Zaft. Let's go. Nigger, let's go. At the same time that Siegel Klein and the other counselors, including Yuri Amify, were rescued, Lei Minkai and Lakis passed through many security checkpoints under the lead of their spies and arrived at a tunnel in a microgravity environment. Zaft's arsenal is further ahead. A few days ago, the latest MS developed for Zaft had just finished its offline work. After the Zaft soldier who led Ray Minkai and Lakis said briefly, he looked at Ray Minkai and stopped talking. Ray Minkai smiled lightly and then gave a standard Zaft military salute. Team Law Lou Kreutzer belongs to Kai Britannia. Follow me. In the depths of the microgravity passage, behind the door, there was a group of people. Freedom, or justice, was waiting for the arrival of choice. Chapter 604. Free Gouda. Since its birth, it had become the representative of the birth of a legend. From the moment Kira Yamato became its pilot, Free Gouda had become a name card of Gouda's seed. Even in the future CD timeline, its influence had been pushed to a higher level with Kira's comeback. Although Seed had many controversies, the popularity of the Seed series body represented by Free Gouda and Justice Gouda was undeniable. Now, when this body that had been popular since its debut appeared in front of him, Reimenkai's mood could be excited or calm. Perhaps, ever since the Silver Wind incident, when he protected Lakis as they fled from space to Earth, and then from Earth back to space, he might have already formed a bond with the Freedom Gundam. Even if, in the original timeline, the person who was tied to Free Gouda was Kira Yamato. Now, standing in front of Free Gouda was Reimenkai, a visitor from another world. "Hey, Kai, are you in a daze?" White Cat State Zero's surprised voice sounded. It did not seem to understand why Reimenkai was in a daze at this moment. "No, I just remembered some things." Reimenkai came back to his senses and responded to his partner's doubts in his heart. "You're in the middle of an act now. Be careful. That person is very strange." Okay. White Cat State Zero, who was hiding in the dark, had been paying attention to the surroundings and was on guard against any possible accidents. After all, apart from Reimenkai and Lakis, there was only Counselor Yuri Amify and a few guards standing there. "Miss Lakis, is this your knight? He does look good. Maybe he's worthy of our greatest masterpiece, Free Gouda." The councilman standing beside Lakis revealed a proud smile and introduced the latest MS under the spotlight to Lakis. "Senator Amify, this airframe is equipped with an anti-neutron jammer?" Lux first observed the black MS before fixing her gaze on the councilman's face. Lakis was naturally very familiar with that face. It was the face of his good friend Nigel Amify's father. However, Lakis knew that the face in front of her was just a clone created by the mastermind using cloning technology to replace the original person, just like what had happened to her. Yes, the anti-neutron disruptor is the latest technology developed by the team I lead. Although this is a sin for us and the people of Plant, it is necessary to win the war, the councilman said. Lakis clearly did not agree with this explanation. "To win? Senator Yuli Amify, that's not how you used to think," Lux said with a serious expression. The councilman smiled, but there was a trace of madness in his eyes. "Yes, I didn't think about it before, but because of this, my son Nigel Amify died in the war with Earth. If before that, I and the team I lead could develop and use this technology in advance, then my son wouldn't have died. Because of this, we can't let the war continue to be crazy. No, this isn't a crazy war. This is a salute for the birth of our king." "King." Reimenkai's eyes focused and caught a trace of the words. It seemed that this was the purpose of Miss E. "King? What is this I talking about? In this era of the universe, establish an empire? What kind of joke is this?" White Cat Zero was surprised. However, Reimenkai was not surprised. Whether it was the UC century or the CE century, there had always been a feudal monarchy in the human society of these two worlds. However, the monarchy in the CE century had never been like the UC century, influencing the development of the era. However, this answer surprised Lux. Because of this, Lux's strange behavior was caught by the councilman. In an instant, the councilman's expression changed. You guys, you're not Lux Klein. Men, catch them. Katja, don't move." The soldier who was acting as the scene subconsciously raised his gun and shouted a warning. "TSK, State Zero." Reimenkai quickly took a step forward and shielded Lakis behind him. Roar. With a roar, a huge white shadow suddenly rushed out from the shadows and sent the soldiers who were pointing their guns at Reimenkai and Lux flying. Pata! Pata! The sound of guns falling to the ground was heard, and the situation was reversed in an instant. Who are you guys? This lion, what's up with it?" The councilman took a few steps back in horror and looked at the soldier who was slapped into the wall by the sudden appearance of the white lion. He pointed at Lux and Reimenkai in shock. Lux looked at the white lion doubtfully, then looked at Ray Minkai. Under the latter's signal, she looked at the councilman again and said loudly, "I'm Lux Klein." "Yuri." "No, perhaps I should be calling you Mr. Photographic Imprinter. It's a pity. Perhaps we can't let this airframe stay here any longer." "You're the real Lux Klein?" "No, impossible. We should have already. Lux should have been killed, right?" Ray Minkai sneered and interrupted the councilman's words, then suddenly grabbed the councilman. "Originally, I was still a little worried about whether you were Yuri Amify or not. After all, if I made a move, it might make niggers sad. But now, I've confirmed your identity. Mr. Photocopy. You." The soldier that he could rely on was taken care of by State Zero, and Ray Minkai grabbed him by the collar and lifted him into the air. The councilman looked at the mask on Ray Minkai's face in a daze, and his mind suddenly quivered. "You're Ray Minkai. You're actually not dead." Ray Minkai, whose identity was exposed, laughed. "Before I get rid of you arrogant photocopies, I won't die like this." "No." The councilman struggled, but Ray Minkai casually threw him out of the pier. Roar! A shadow followed closely and pounced on the councilman, who was thrown out of the pier by Ray Minkai. Boom! With a loud boom, the imprinted figure created by Yuri Amify was slapped into the shadows where Lux could not see by the white lion. "Sorry, Lux. You've been frightened." Lux shook her head slightly. She did not care about Ray Minkai's behavior just now, but she was curious about the white lion that suddenly appeared. This is State Zero. The one you saw before is that white cat." Now that things had come to this, it was time to let Lux know something. State Zero, who had turned into a white lion, nodded slowly. As if he was following Lei Minkai's instructions, he turned into a white cat that Lakis had seen before in the blink of an eye. However, in the face of such a strange situation, Lux was only stunned for a moment before she smiled. "I hope you can introduce your good friend to me, Kai. Can you?" That calmness, that smile, made the white cat, State Zero, quiver. Hey, Kai, didn't you tell this little girl about me?" "No, the time is not right." Ray Minkai casually responded to State Zero of the white cat, then nodded at Lux. Lux's reaction was not out of Ray Minkai's expectations. Perhaps this was because Lux had a certain understanding of the white cat, State Zero's existence when she escaped from Alaska's headquarters. However, now was not the time to pursue this question. Otherwise, Lux wouldn't have said those words just now. Lei Minkai and Lakis looked at the pitch-black MS at the same time, who was standing there quietly and watching everything that happened. "I have to go first, Lux, in order to stop this war. Am I right, Kai?" Lux retracted her gaze from the dark MS and stared at Ray Minkai's eyes. "Yes, and to find out the culprit who caused all this." Lux nodded slightly, but suddenly exerted a little force on her feet and gently flew in front of Ray Minkai. Then, he felt a soft touch and a fragrant aroma. After that, Lux's face gradually became clear in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. Perhaps saying this will make you feel like an outsider, but the words that are in my heart now. As her dress swayed gently, Lux gradually retreated, but her smile and voice were so bright. "Kai, please come back. Come back to me." White Cat, State Zero, jumped lightly from Ray Minkai's shoulder and landed on Lux's shoulder. "Yes, I will come back. Wait for me." A few minutes later, under the gaze of Lux, who had returned to the safe zone, Ray Minkai, who had changed into a pilot's suit, swiftly entered the cockpit of the free Gao. Let's go. "Lux Klein, you don't need to worry about that guy." As the free Gao Da's cockpit closed, an unfamiliar voice suddenly appeared in Lux's mind. However, Lux was not surprised. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and glanced at the white cat, State Zero, lying on her shoulder. She nodded and turned around to leave the safe zone with a determined expression. Under the guidance of the person who received her, she quickly left the factory that gave birth to the free Gouda. Next, under the protection of the white cat, Lux would rendezvous with Law and the others. Then, under the cover of Ray Minkai piloting the free Gouda, they would leave April City from another direction and head to the prearranged rendezvous point to rendezvous with the giant snake's tail. The most dangerous part of this plan was undoubtedly the pressure that Ray Minkai, piloting the Free Gouda, would face. Ray Minkai, who seized the Free Gouda, would undoubtedly become a thorn in Zaf's side. He would also become a thorn in the flesh of mice, who was hiding behind Zaf's back. Therefore, in order to get rid of the thorn in their side, Ray Minkai, Zaf, who was stationed in April City and even in Plant, would definitely mobilize all the forces that could be mobilized to encircle and annihilate Ray Minkai, who had seized the Free Gouda. This was not the plot where Kira Yamato seized the Free Gouda and rushed all the way back to Earth. Instead, it was to cover Lux's successful retreat with the giant snake's tail and the giant snake's tail. As the system started up, the screen in the Free Gouda's cockpit lit up continuously. Lines of data quickly flashed across the screen and finally turned into Gouda's full English speech. Free Gouda. Ray Minkai's gaze slowly swept across the screen in front of him. His hand slowly but firmly gripped the joystick. This might be the most exciting moment in Ray Minkai's life. But now his heart was calm. Suddenly, several lines flashed across the screen in front of him. The Free Gouda's radar had captured human activity. In front of him, behind the floor-to-ceiling window, a pink figure appeared with a panicked expression. Standing beside him was a young man with short brown hair and a slightly immature face who didn't know what was going on. Behind this man and woman, there were several Zaf soldiers with nervous expressions. They pressed their headsets and constantly called out to ask about the situation. Free Gouda, please answer if you receive. Please state your identity immediately. Please state your identity immediately. The next moment, an emergency communication from the control center resounded in the Free Gouda's cockpit. But Ray Minkai turned a deaf ear to it. He casually turned off the communication between the Free Gouda and the control center. This action immediately deeply stimulated the people in the control center. Not good. We can't forcibly terminate the Free Gouda's activation through the program here. Even the gate that is about to open can't be stopped. Only by using a physical link can it be possible to turn off the Free Gouda's activation. The sweaty technician looked at the Free Gouda that had begun to disconnect the wires with a panicked expression. In less than half a minute, the Free Gouda that had disconnected all the wires would be completely activated. It would rush out of April City and into space through the opening above their heads. What the hell happened? Here, shouldn't that MS be handed over to us? The pink figure standing beside Kira Yamato looked in disbelief at the MS that had disconnected all the wires and gradually turned from a pitch-black appearance into a red, blue, white, and black steel giant. Gouda. Kira stared blankly at the Free Gouda, as if when he was staring at the Free Gouda was also staring at him. Unknowingly, a trace of reluctance and indescribable bitterness emerged in Kira's heart. Why? Why is it like this? Kira subconsciously reached out his hand to press on the glass window, but he didn't know that his current appearance was seen by Ray Minkai. Kira, I didn't expect you to still appear here, but the Free Gouda already belongs to me. At this time, the Free Gouda's program had been activated. Ray Minkai's left foot slowly pressed down, and the Free Gouda's propulsion engine gradually roared. X-10A, Free Gouda, Ray Minkai attack. Chapter 605. The new steel wings stretched out wantonly, and the new MS, which Zaft regarded as one of the key links to ending the war, rushed out of the passage leading to space at an extremely fast speed. The moment the Freedom Gundam appeared in space, tongues of fire followed closely behind it. It's Zeon. Zeon? 1, 2, 5 planes? You really think highly of me. Ray Minkai couldn't help but sigh as his gaze quickly swept past the bright spots displayed on the radar screen. One must know that when Kira Yamato seized Free Gouda, only 2 Zeons intercepted him. What about Ray Minkai? However, what welcomed the Freedom Gundam was a full Microsoft team. It could be imagined that when Free Gauda rushed out of April City, the intercepting force Kira faced was full of water. Da-da-da-da. The tongues of fire pierced through the air. In an instant, the 5 Zeons quickly divided into 3 teams and surrounded Free Gauda from the front, left, and right. The Zeon in front was the captain of this MS team, and he was a veteran with rich combat experience. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in a position to face Free Gauda head-on and try to restrain Free Gauda, trying to create as many opportunities for the team to surround him as possible. However, Captain Zeon obviously underestimated Free Gauda's speed. The Zeon's formation had just spread out. Free Gauda had already rushed in front of him. Then, a ray of light bloomed from Free Gauda's right hand that was extended to his waist. In the blink of an eye, Captain Zeon's right hand was cut off along with the monitor on his head. In the next second, Free Gauda easily broke through the incomplete encirclement, and the remaining 4 Zeons were almost stunned on the spot. "Captain, I'm fine. Quickly chase after him. That's our latest MS. We can't let it fall into the hands of a damn natural person. Quickly." When Ray Minkai had shown mercy, Captain Jean was first terrified, then immediately gave the order to pursue. The communication from the factory's control center had explained everything. Even if Freedom Gauda's performance was beyond imagination, the mission of Team MS was to do their best to stall Freedom Gauda. The brilliance of the propulsion engine was like a fluorescent light in the dark night. It only left a faint trace in the eyes of Zaft, who was pursuing Free Gauda according to the captain's orders, but made people feel uneasy. "Quick, hurry up." Amidst the urging, the remaining 4 Zeon could only watch as the light of the propulsion engine in front of them gradually disappeared. So fast is that our latest model of MS. The moment the flames in the distance disappeared, Jean's radar also lost Gauda's signal. However, this didn't mean that the Free Gauda had left this universe. On the contrary, in a universe that Jean couldn't see, the Free Gauda's speed slowed down slightly. Acceleration program normal, balance compensation system -0. 2. Motion compensation system 0. 1. Dynamic lens debugging normal. In the eyes of ordinary people, the sword just now might be a stunning sword light. But for Ray Minkai, it represented a lot of things. The Free Gauda. This was the latest model of MS that had just come off the line. In other words, it was an MS that was equivalent to a blank sheet of paper. Only under the operation of an exclusive pilot and multiple debugging, this latest model of MS could unleash its greatest potential. And now, it was a great opportunity to fully unleash the potential of the Free Gauda. For the Free Gauda, which was born as a weapon, other than the battlefield, there was no other place for it to fully unleash its potential. Initial debugging complete. Then let's begin. In the endless darkness, the Free Gauda flipped over and burst out several bright flames. At the same time, it once again drew an extremely eye-catching streamer in the void. "There! Quick! Chase!" The streamer left behind by the Free Gauda was like a bright light in the darkness, instantly attracting the attention of the 4 Gene. However, the Gene that hurriedly chased after it didn't know. The streamer was actually just a bait. As the distance between the 4 Zon mechs gradually widened due to their different speeds, a ghostly shadow silently appeared behind the Zeon that was lagging the furthest behind. Buzz! Another ray of light flashed. The lagger Gene was cut in half on the spot. Boom! The moment a fireball lit up in the dark void, 2 electric lights instantly erupted from the Free Gauda's waist. Boom! In the next second, the Gene closest to the Free Gauda was penetrated in the back by some kind of attack and exploded on the spot. This wasn't a mysterious attack. It came from the 2 MMIM-15 Sailfish electromagnetic cannons installed on the Free Gauda's waist. With just one attack, the Gene that had almost scared the Earth Alliance since the beginning of the war exploded. Da-da-da-da. When the 2 fireballs appeared one after another, the 2 Gene that were the fastest finally reacted. They turned around and raised their guns, locked onto the Free Gauda, and fired. In the end, the Jean's fire control radar couldn't keep up with the Free Gao Da's speed at all. That ghost-like speed, whether it was the fire control radar or the pilot's eyes, they couldn't keep up. They could only constantly change their movements and frantically change the direction of their electronic eyes, try to find the Free Gao Da's movement trajectory. Buzz! Suddenly, a beam of light rushed from the bottom of the Jean's feet, piercing through the third Jean that couldn't react in time from the bottom. The moment the blazing beam of light pierced through the Jean's head monitor without any obstruction, the third fireball quietly rose. At the same time, the remaining Jean's pilot was scared out of his wits. What kind of monster is this? Do we create a monster? The heavy assault rifle in the Jean's hands roared crazily, shooting bullets that contained the pilot's fear at the Free Gao Da like a hurricane. However, the Jean's crazy attack that contained fear was destined to be fruitless. Ray Minkai only lightly stepped on the ground with his left foot, and the Free Gao Da nimbly left the Jean's area of attack. In the blink of an eye, he had occupied the advantageous position above the Jean. Buzz! Another beam of light. This beam attack from the MAM-20 Sirius beam rifle in the Free Gao Da's hands was like the previous attack, easily piercing through the Jean. It was just that the piercing process changed from bottom up to bottom up. Boom! The last Jean turned into a fireball and lit up. However, this battle was far from over. This was because, while Ray Minkai deliberately slowed down the pace to allow the 4 Jean to pursue, the warnings issued from the Factory Control Center finally alerted the headquarters of the National Defense Committee, as well as the mini fleet station near plant. What? Our latest model of MS was stolen. How is that possible? Who did it? When Patrick Sala heard the news, he immediately stood up from his seat. Looking at his shocked expression, he probably even forgot about the guest sitting on the sofa in front of his desk. Chairman, please calm down. Now, we should immediately pursue the enemy who stole our Mecha. The heavenly voice slowly sounded, gently comforting Patrick's somewhat irritated mood. Yes, I was too impatient. Inform the 1st and 3rd fleets stationed in the local sector to return immediately. No matter what method is used, we must take back the stolen Mecha. Patrick took a few deep breaths and finally calmed down. After he quickly gave his orders, he turned around and looked at the beautiful figure standing on the sofa. Lux, thank you for your reminder. The beautiful figure was none other than Mia, who appeared as Lux Klein. Facing Patrick's praise, Mia only smiled gently and didn't take the credit. The chairman was just in a moment of impatience. Even if I didn't remind him, he would have reacted immediately. Looks like my silly son finally has some luck. Patrick smiled in relief and then looked at the ZAF soldier who came to report the news. Who the hell stole our Mecha? When Patrick asked this question, the ZAF soldier didn't immediately answer. Instead, he showed a hesitant expression. Moreover, his hesitant eyes seemed to intentionally or unintentionally look at Mia's location. This infuriated Patrick on the spot. Speak if you have something to say. There's no outsider here. Patrick's fury gave the ZAF soldier a fright. In his fright, the ZAF soldier instinctively handed over the CD containing the factory surveillance video to Patrick. Patrick, who didn't suspect anything, looked at the CD and then casually put it into the computer integrated on the desk. As a result, the image that appeared on the screen made Patrick turn pale with fright. While extremely shocked, Patrick subconsciously looked at Mia, who was still standing on the sofa. After a long while, Patrick first used his cold gaze to warn the ZAF soldier and asked him to leave the office. Then, he looked at Mia. Lakis, come over and see for yourself. Patrick's gaze was complicated. Doubt, hesitation, shock. There was even a trace of anger. Such a complicated gaze made Mia's heart sink. Could it be that the person who stole the latest model of Mecha? As Mia's footsteps moved, the image that appeared in front of her was the image of a man and a woman standing in front of the Free Gao. How is this possible? The man in the image was wearing a mask, making it impossible for others to see his face clearly. However, the woman standing in front of the masked man was so familiar. She was so familiar that he could immediately call out her name at a glance. Lakis Klein. Why is she here? Didn't she already die in the Silver Wind incident? How is she still alive? At this moment, Mia finally understood the reason for Patrick's complicated expression just now. Chairman, just as Mia opened her mouth, Patrick raised his hand to stop her from speaking. You are Lakis Klein, the biological daughter of Siegel Klein, and also the fiancée of my son Aslan Sala, the future woman of the Sala family. There is no doubt about this. After pausing for a moment, Patrick's expression gradually turned cold. It's just that the Earth Alliance made use of this point and had a spy disguised as you, thus stealing our latest model of MS, the Free Gouda. Lakis, don't you think so? Mia was stunned for a moment. Then she understood what Patrick meant. Regardless of whether she was the real Lakis Klein, in Patrick's eyes, if she, a girl with this face, could stand on the side of the Sala faction, then she would be the Lakis Klein in the eyes of the Sala faction. Although this truth made Mia a little uncomfortable, it was inevitable. In the past, because Mia didn't understand this, she was used by that sly chairman. Even when Aslan tried to take her away, she was still reluctant to part with the vanity identity that the chairman gave her and rejected Aslan's invitation, resulting in her tragic death. Now, facing this situation again, although Mia was uncomfortable, she was much calmer. And this calmness made Patrick show a look of admiration once again. Lakis, go and welcome Aslan. Perhaps he will need that airframe. Patrick said something that surprised Mia. This was undoubtedly saying that he had already treated her as family. Mia smiled gently and replied, That's right. Yes, I'll go now. Chairman. Just as Mia turned to leave, Patrick suddenly said, Don't worry, Mia. Lakis, don't call me chairman in private. Mia was stunned, and the smile on her face became even more beautiful. Yes, father. And in the space battlefield near Four Moon City, a Laurasia-class warship and 2 NASCAR-class warships were entering this battlefield at full speed. At the same time, these 3 warships that rushed into the battlefield were constantly releasing all the Zeons that they carried. The Zeons that flew out of the motherships didn't have much heavy equipment on them. Most of them were equipment that focused more on high-mobility combat. This was also the result of the intelligence feedback from the Factory Control Center and the Zaft warship that entered this void battlefield first. That's our latest model of MS? What kind of monster is it? No matter who it was, as long as one entered this battlefield, when they saw the Free Gouda that was surrounded by more than 10 Zeons and easily launched a surprise attack on the surrounding warships, destroying a NASCAR-class warship, injuring 2 Laurasia-class warships, and forcing them to withdraw from the battle, they would all exclaim in surprise and amazement. X-10A Free Gouda. That's our latest model of body. Is this a drill? Behind these warships, a spaceship that returned from Earth happened to arrive at the edge of this battlefield. And inside this spaceship, a girl was leaning against the porthole and casually picked up a radio walkie-talkie. As a result, she was shocked by the content of the communication. That's not a drill. It's just a statement from the ancient East, the cycle of life and death. Not long ago, we took their latest model of MS from the hands of the Earth Alliance. In the end, we encountered this ourselves. Kreutzer's self-deprecating smile made Aslan, who was standing next to him, frown. Aslan, Ali is right. That's our latest model of MS, the Free Gouda. Not long ago, it was taken by a spy. Now the Zaft fleet station and plant is encircling and suppressing it. After a pause, Kreutzer continued, Rather than calling it an encirclement, it's better to call a cat catching a mouse. Of course, our local fleet isn't a cat. The real cat should be the body called the Free Gouda Puff. With a muffled sound, Aslan's figure floated past Kreutzer. Aslan, that body is a new body equipped with an anti-neutron jammer system. No matter how much your holy shield is modified, it can't be compared to it. Kreutzer's words made Aslan stop his body that was floating forward. Then, Aslan turned around and saluted Kreutzer. Aslan Sarah, request to attack. No matter what, our Zaft's body won't be allowed to fall into the hands of the enemy. Well said. Go. If you can't defeat the enemy, please head to these coordinates. Your Royal Highness will be waiting for you there. Kreutzer took out a piece of paper and wrote down a set of coordinates on it. He handed it to Ali and signaled her to follow Aslan. Yes. Chapter 606. As the first force to use MS in the CE century, the various tactics developed by its pilots under this premise laid the foundation for Zaft attack at the beginning of the war. However, these tactics were so powerless in the face of the pilots trained by Zaft Military Academy and the enemy combined with the brand new Mecha developed by Zaft. Left 2 Mecha. Freedom Gauda's front right was a chilling barrage, and despite the fierce firepower, only the left side of the 2 Xeon Mecha was tempting. Normal people would take measures to avoid the danger of concentrated firepower from the front right and retreat to the left. In this way, they would inevitably be ambushed by the enemy. This was a trap tactic only used when Zaft sent out a group of Xeon Mecha of a certain size or above. Only Ray Minkai avoided the attack from the front right. If he turned to other directions, he would inevitably be attacked by waves of 2 to 3 Xeon Mecha in a formation. What made Ray Minkai feel ridiculed was that this was a sure-kill tactic adopted by Zaft when they discovered the brand new MS developed by Earth Alliance, and when they had the advantage in numbers. With the advantage in numbers, they fully exerted their greatest strength, using the tactic of attrition warfare to achieve the greatest possibility of exhausting the opponent's combat power, and thus killing in one blow. Earth Alliance's brand new MS was strangled on the battlefield. However, this tactic had never appeared in Ray Minkai's memory of the CE century. It was only after he personally experienced the training of Zaft Military Academy and piloted Freedom Gao that he fully understood and experienced this tactic as a practical party. Despite this, Ray Minkai only snorted coldly and decisively adopted a method that surprised the Xeons who were preparing to close the net. Steel wings retracted, Freedom Gao raised its left hand and rushed toward the barrage of firepower from the front right at full speed. What? Amidst the cries of disbelief, at least 10 Xeons' attacks hit Gauda. However, the bullets from the heavy assault rifles in their hands could not penetrate Gauda's shield. Some of the lucky ones even hit Gauda's body, but they still could not shake the PS armor that was powered by sufficient energy. Among the comments, Gauda was like a shooting star, straight and resolute as he passed through the comments created by the Xeons, once again breaking through their tactics. After breaking through the encirclement of the Xeons, the Zaft battleships that had sealed off this region appeared before their eyes. 2 Laurasian class and 4 Nazca class. It seems that the Zaft fleet, which is responsible for defending the mainland, has been sent here in a short period of time. The more Zaft mobilized MS and warships to surround the Free Gauda, the more loopholes would appear in the local defense network. Under such circumstances, the risk of being discovered by the giant serpent's tail and the recovery house that brought Lux, Sienna, and the many counselors away would be lower. Thinking of this, Ray Minkai slowly exhaled. Between the continuous pedals of his feet, the sprinting Free Gao did a few rolling maneuvers in a straight line. He actually turned back and charged toward the Xeons that were chasing after him through the air defense barrage created by the 2 Laurasian class and the 4 Nazca class. This scene surprised the Zaft army present. However, after thinking about it, they concluded that the Free Gauda's current appearance was due to the ferocious firepower of their warships, which forced the Free Gauda to turn back and fight with the Xeons. This was not the thought of 1 or 2 Zaft pilots, but the general idea of almost all the Zaft soldiers present. The Free Gauda's speed has been restricted. A red stream of light appeared behind the Zaft fleet and quickly flew toward the battlefield of the Free Gauda and the Xeons. Aslan, please be careful. Don't let the Holy Shield Gauda maintain the state of explosive maneuver for 180 seconds. Otherwise, even if the body can withstand it, your body won't be able to withstand that terrifying speed for a long time. Alice's warning quietly sounded in Aslan's ears, making Aslan focus slightly. Yes, This was Aslan's request after baiting Panama and then sitting alone in the holy Shield Gauda's cockpit for a day and night after receiving the news of Neger's death. Despite Alice's many objections, the holy Shield Gau still modified according to Aslan's idea. Now, it was just the right time to let the modified holy Shield Gau show his strength. A high-speed target? The moment the red stream of light passed behind the Zaft fleet, the Free Gauda's radar discovered its existence. However, after comparing with the database of the body carried by the Free Gauda, Ray Minkai was a little surprised by this body labeled as the Holy Shield Gauda, but its speed was at least twice as fast as the original Holy Shield Gauda, its modified. When the brilliance of the Free Gauda's right hand cut the Xeon with a lightning symbol on its shoulder into two halves, the Holy Shield Gauda, who rushed into the battlefield in the Ma form, had already rushed to the top of the Free Gauda and aimed at the Free Gauda with a 580mm abdominal fixed multiple-phase energy cannon. The bright and dazzling beam of light arrived in an instant, but it did not hit the Free Gauda. It didn't hit the mobility of the Free Gauda. While being surprised that his attack did not hit the target, Aslan also had a deep understanding of what Kreutzer said before. Even a modified Holy Shield Gau can't offset the performance gap between it and the Free Gauda. As if responding to the attack of the Holy Shield Gauda, the Free Gauda driven by Ray Minkai actually ignored Xeon, who took the opportunity to rush to him. While turning around lightly to avoid the attack, he raised the muzzle and fired 3 consecutive shots at the Holy Shield Gauda. This might have been an ordinary shot. However, as the one being attacked, Aslan felt a strong pressure. The Free Gauda's attack seemed to have seen through Aslan's attack pattern. No. In the dark, Aslan had a very strange feeling. That was, the pilot who drove the Free Gau seemed to be very familiar with him. That feeling was as familiar as a comrade in arms who could trust each other on the battlefield and entrust their lives to each other. There were not many people who could bring about this feeling. Only the companions that Aslan met when he was still in military school would have such a familiar feeling. Yitzhak, Diego, Lagis, Nigger, and Ray Minkai. In addition to the first 2, the latter 3 died in this war one after another. How is that possible? It is impossible for Yitzhak and Diego to betray Zaft and Plant. Your movements have slowed down? Aslan, are you having your old problems again? The Holy Shield Gauda's fierce offensive showed a slight wavering and was immediately caught by Ray Minkai. There was no other reason for this situation. It was Ray Minkai's deliberate action. In the attack just now, Ray Minkai intentionally or unintentionally disturbed Aslan's offensive and even revealed a flaw from time to time, luring Aslan into the trap he designed step by step. There was no doubt that Ray Minkai's move was a success. It was just a small sense of familiarity that made Aslan feel puzzled. An opportunity then appeared. The 2M100 whale plasma cannons hidden in the wings of the Free Gau suddenly unfolded and locked onto the Holy Shield Gauda in an instant. At that moment, the brilliance of the plasma cannons stung Aslan's eyes and woke him up. Not good. The auxiliary thrusters on the Holy Shield Gauda's body erupted wildly, forcibly snatching the Holy Shield Gauda back from the hands of the Grim Reaper with continuous rolling maneuvers. However, the Free Gauda's offensive was not over. As soon as the plasma cannon was fired, the Free Gauda raised his left hand and swung it. With a wave of his left hand, a rapidly rotating afterimage swept towards the Holy Shield Gauda like a whirlwind. It was a shield. It turned out that the Free Gauda used its shield as a weapon and threw it towards the Holy Shield Gauda, who had not yet had time to adjust his posture. The whirlwind-like shield hurriedly rolled over. Aslan had no other choice but to take advantage of the last moment before the shield hit and forcibly change the Holy Shield Gauda from the MA form back to the MS form, and raise the shield in his left hand to block. Boom! The roar between the metal could not be transmitted in a vacuum. But Aslan, who was sitting in the cockpit, could still hear the whine of his beloved machine when it was hit by the shield. Aslan's actions had saved the Holy Shield Gundam from being smashed by the Freedom Gundam's shield, but the powerful impact had knocked the Gundam's door open. The moment the Holy Shield Gauda's door was wide open and full of flaws, a huge steel figure quietly appeared in front of Aslan. The Free Gauda. It was the Free Gauda. On the screen in front of Aslan, the Free Gauda's pair of cold golden electronic eyes were so clear. The clear code mark on his forehead was even more clearly visible. Then, before Aslan could do anything, a terrible impact suddenly kicked Aslan from the sober reality into the darkness of the reversed reality. Boom! The Free Gauda kicked the Holy Shield Gauda's cockpit hard and used the reaction force to accelerate again, pulling away from the kicked Holy Shield Gauda until the Free Gauda once again returned to the encirclement of the Zeons. Aslan, the Holy Shield Gauda, who had lost all reaction, gradually slipped into the darkness, and the shuttle driven by Alicia chased after it. It's really a cat catching a mouse. Kreutzer sighed softly as he wandered in the spaceship on the battlefield. His gaze passed through the mask, and also through the porthole in front of him, falling into the battlefield that was already filled with the flames of war. The Free Gauda's existence was undoubtedly the most dazzling star on this battlefield. It was just that this star seemed to be filled with the wicked interest of toying with the weak. It broke through the blockade of the Zeons again and again, and attacked the intercepting fleet formed by more and more ZAF battleships again and again. No, perhaps, to the ZAF pilots who were participating in this battle, the Free Gauda's existence was undoubtedly terrifying and powerful. They could only do their best and rely on the help of their teammates and fleet to be able to delay the Free Gauda, waiting for the nearby fleet to assemble and kill the Free Gauda in one fell swoop. However, from the perspective of a bystander, Kreutzer, who was watching the battle with cold eyes, was sneering. There was no other reason. He had already seen through the true intentions behind the actions of the Free Gauda and even Ray Minkai. Who are you covering for? The Free Gauda. Kreutzer's gaze moved away from the battle and fell on the back of the battlefield, on the universe with hundreds of colonial satellites suspended in the air. A cold chill swept through Ray Minkai's mind without warning. Who is it? Ray Minkai's gaze changed, quickly glanced at the screen in front of him, and even switched the detection mode of the radar several times. As a result, whether it was his intuition or the Free Gauda's radar, they didn't detect any other targets other than the Zeons and the ZAF battleships. It seemed that the sudden chill, just now, was just a flash in the pan. But Ray Minkai didn't dare to be careless. Someone is nearby, and the other party seems to have seen through my actions. This was the worst-case scenario Ray Minkai made in his mind at the moment. In order to avoid any unexpected events, Ray Minkai estimated the time and immediately changed his actions. The delay was almost enough. Next, it was time for him to pilot the Free Gauda and break out of the encirclement. Otherwise, even if the Free Gauda had almost infinite energy, his spirit couldn't support such a fierce high-intensity battle for a long time. As a result, the Free Gauda's attack suddenly became fierce. Under the driving force brought by the speed of surpassing Zons, the Free Gauda occasionally raised the Sirius beam rifle in his hand and shot out beams to break up the Zeon's intercepting formation. Then he suddenly turned around and launched the 2 plasma cannons in the wings and the 2 electromagnetic pulse cannons on his waist at the same time. Boom! The Free Gauda's volley, which was jokingly called the colorful cannon by many Gauda fans, appeared for the first time. In the blink of an eye, at least 3 of the pursuing troops cooperating with the Zeon's intercepting team were blown up on the spot, and 4 were injured. At this moment, the ZAF fleet was stunned on the spot. The previous view, that as long as they persisted until the reinforcements arrived, they could take down the Free Gauda in one fell swoop, was instantly shattered by the Free Gauda's colorful cannon at this moment. How can it be? At least 10 Zeons lost their combat power in an instant. Did our technicians really create such a monster? Similar exclamations sounded again. However, this time, The free Gauda that destroyed most of the Zeons with a fierce attack rushed to the front of Zaf's intercepting fleet without any hindrance. The lock sign on the screen moved and became red. Then, Ray Minkai pulled the trigger. The colorful cannon fired again. Boom! In the light of the explosion of the NASCAR-class engine, the free Gauda flew into the deep universe. Chapter 607. The news of Freedom Gauda being seized and escaping after causing a ruckus in the outer region of Four Moon City was blocked by Patrick Sala from the start. However, it still caused a huge uproar in the National Defense Committee and the Supreme Council. This was especially so when Mia and Miss E. Alice Pompey found out that Siegel Klein, who was secretly under house arrest, and the other counselors were kidnapped at the same time as the Freedom Gundam was seized. They found it even harder to calm the shock in their hearts. Shouldn't we have killed Lax Klein on the Silver Wind already? And who is Lux Klein, the one who seized the Freedom Gundam? Mia stood in front of the holographic projection of her height and stared at the moment when Freedom Gauda was seized for a long time. That beautiful long pink hair, that pure white dress, and that almost perfect and exquisite face. They were all telling Mia a fact. The real Lax Klein was still alive in this world, and she was secretly plotting against Freedom Gauda and even Siegel Klein and the other counselors. Whether Lax Klein of the Silver Wind or Lax Klein, who has become the ambassador of universal peace, is still alive or not, it doesn't matter now. Behind the holographic projection, a face appeared silently. It was Alec Pompey, who was also Miss E of the Parliament of Destiny. The girl passed through the holographic projection and stood in front of Mia. "Alec, you're back." When Mia saw Alec's appearance, she immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The pressure from the real Lax Klein was immense. Even if Mia Campbell, who had been reborn and awakened from the darkness of death, still felt the same pressure. "I'm back. I didn't expect such a big thing to happen here when I left. This is my fault. Mia, you don't have to worry too much." Alec reached out and gently stroked Mia's cheeks a few times. After comforting Mia a little, she turned around and fixed her gaze on the holographic projection screen that was fixed at a certain moment. Should we immediately send a fleet to pursue Lax Klein? The corners of Mia's mouth twitched, but she still said those words. Alice smiled faintly and nodded her head. "Pursue. We still have to pursue. It's just that we might have overlooked some things from the very beginning." "Matter." Mia looked at the woman who had brought her out of the abyss of death in confusion. Had it not been for the fact that they both loved the same person, Mia would have been terrified of Alice Pompey's character, and even some of her actions. "Yes. Do you still remember Miss Q?" After Alicia said a name, she continued, "You're right. Before that, we received some information from our new friend. It was said that among the patrollers participating in the mission of escorting the return of the Universal Peace Ambassador, there was a new patroller who could use a strange beast-like body other than a humanoid body. Beast-type mecha? Miss Q." Mia frowned and suddenly came to a realization. Is it that lion? Is it the lion that almost killed Miss Q? Alicia nodded and let out a sigh. "I didn't expect that even the MDE dimensional devourer, which is enough to kill most creatures, couldn't kill him." Alice gently raised her right hand, and a photo taken during a fierce battle appeared in front of Mia's eyes. This is the enemy that Yitzhak, Diego, and Neger encountered during Victoria's offensive and defensive war. Lion. It's that lion. Even without Erica's reminder, Mia saw the pure white lion that was able to easily deal with the combined attacks of the three Gundams, Storm and Thunderbolt. What a pity. By the time I received this photo, Victoria's offensive and defensive war was over. Even though I've already rushed back as fast as I can, I'm still a step behind. Alice moved her gaze away from the pure white lion and landed on the masked man standing in front of the free Gauda with Lax. Even though the man's face was covered by a white mask, Alicia was certain of his identity. Ray Minkai, the only survivor of Bloody Valentine's Day. After waking up, he volunteered to join the Zaf Military Academy and became Zaf's reserve pilot. When he was about to graduate, he suddenly disappeared. When he appeared again, he was participating in the mission of the Spiritual Comfort Group, led by Lax Klein. Alice slowly exhaled and continued. Although it doesn't look like much, this lion knight who almost killed Miss Q has a keen sense of smell. Keen. Mia pondered for a moment and said with some uncertainty, "Did he meet two Lax Kleins one after another?" Allie nodded. "Isn't that so? First, he met Lax Klein, the Universal Peace Ambassador, at his peak. Then, after the explosion of the MDE bomb, he suddenly appeared in this world and met Lax Klein of this world. I won't believe it if you tell me that there's no connection between them." After a pause, Alice said with a serious expression, "Members of the Destiny Council never believe in the appearance of luck. The MDE bomb was used." Mia thought of a possibility. Although it was ridiculous, it was the most likely speculation. Facing this possibility, Alice shook her head and sighed. "I don't know. If we knew how the Lion Knight came to our world that was specially created for Aslan, maybe we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble to collect world fragments and use the technology provided by the Destiny Council to create this simulation world." Mia, who was also confused, also sighed. Even though she had experienced death, she was still an ordinary person. Facing this problem that even a member of the Destiny Council couldn't explain, Mia could only sigh helplessly. Right? How's Aslan? Putting the problem aside, the two's attention returned to the people they cared about and worked hard for so far. The situation is good. It's just that Aslan is very depressed after waking up. Alice thought for a moment and continued. Perhaps, when he was fighting with Gouda, Aslan had already seen through his opponent's identity. After all, they used to study and train together in the Zaf Military Academy. I'll go check on Aslan. Okay, leave it to me. Although Siegel Klein and those counselors have been taken away, the Supreme Council is under our control. It's time. Yes, it's time. In the boundless space, two armed transport ships with different logos slowly sailed from different directions into a remote universe that was used for the development of space resources in the early days of the space development era, but has now been abandoned for 10 years. This is the Recycling House New Home. Giant Serpent Tail, please reply if you receive this. Please reply if you receive this. The central AI that controlled the Recycling House mothership, known as GG, was constantly sending light signals to the armed ship with the giant serpent tail not far ahead. Although it was confirmed that the other party was the giant serpent tail that participated in the rescue operation when they saw the lightning snake logo on the ship's bow, Law still asked GG to confirm the identity of the other party for the sake of insurance. As a result, the light signal sent back by the other party made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. Phew, this mission is finally completed. It's so exciting. Law patted his chest, trying to calm his heart that was still beating wildly from the beginning of the evacuation from April City to the present. This may be the first time Law has participated in such an exciting thing since he was born. In the capital of a country, at least 20 counselors, including Yuri Amify, were brought out. Although Law and the people in the recycling house did not need to face too many attacks, as one of the main transportation forces for the evacuation of counselors, the pressure on Law and the others was still huge. Thank you, Law. Thanks to you and the help of the recycling house, we were able to escape from April City. Nickel extended his right hand to Law as if he wanted to shake hands and thank him. Law took a look at Nigger, then chuckled and patted his chest with a big grin. It's nothing. Kai is my friend. This is inevitable. Law's forthrightness made Nickel slightly stunned. It seems that he did not expect Law's reaction to be so unexpected. Is it? That's true. Law, you are Kai's friend, and naturally, you are my friend. Please advise me in the future. Good. We will be friends in the future. On the other side, Yamashiro Shuri, who had just breathed a sigh of relief, saw Law and Nickel shaking hands and laughing. He was shocked and quickly pulled the professor, who seemed to have not woken up yet. Professor, quick, look. Law, that guy, actually shook hands with the son of the Plant Supreme Council. They became friends. The professor lazily raised his eyes and casually glanced at Law, who was talking and laughing with Nickel, and the corner of his mouth was raised. What's the matter? It's just a friendship between boys. Compared to this, you should pay more attention to the princess. On the other side of the giant snake's tail, it seems that the princess's father is there. In addition, Knight, who led this plan, seems to have cleared the obstacles and is speeding back, isn't it? Gigi. Schwa. As soon as the professor's voice fell, a holographic projection of a man in a gorgeous military uniform with a face almost identical to that of a famous figure appeared behind the two. He nodded his head with a solemn expression. Yes, I just received a message from Knight. He has broken through the interception net formed by at least 12 Xeon, 2 Laurasia-class battleships, and 4 Nazca-class battleships, and is rushing to this assembly point at full speed. As soon as this remark came out, it immediately caused a burst of gasps in the bridge. Just one MS broke through the interception net formed by at least 12 Xeon and 6 battleships? How is this possible? Many members who had been silent and just sat quietly in the New Home Bridge exclaimed in disbelief. No, this is possible. If that airframe is the brand new MS we made, Gouda. At this time, a calm voice came from the automatic door of the bridge. Father, Lakis, you are here. It was Yuri Amify who came out of the automatic door, followed by Lakis Klein. Well, Nickel, I'm glad you are still alive, but the next thing will become more serious. Do you still choose to stay on the battlefield? Yuri Amify looked at his son who was still alive with relief. Yes, Father. This war is no longer a war between Zaft and the Earth United. I must stop this stupid war. Well, then you can stand here. Yuri Amify's expression was slightly complicated, but he still approved of Nickel's choice. Nega did not suspect anything. After exchanging glances with Lakis, he stood behind the two of them. Mr. Lojalai, and everyone in the recycling house, thank you very much for your help in times of danger. But now, we need to talk openly about some things. Yuri Amify looked at Law, and his intention was already very obvious. However, before Law could speak, a communication was picked up by GG. It was a communication from the tail of the giant snake. I'm Siegel Klein. Yuri, are you over there? You don't have to worry about some things. Between us, there is still one person missing. Am I right? Lakis. On the main screen of the bridge, Siegel's face was haggard, but her eyes were still bright. Father. Lakis called her father uncontrollably, but in the next moment, she reluctantly controlled herself and nodded, trying to stabilize her voice. Yes, Father. Kai's not back yet. Kai, is it? Siegel had already learned about Ray Minkai from Tsong Yin Xiao, but she did not expect that there would be such a subtle feeling between her beloved daughter and Ray Minkai. Really? As expected, Lei Minkai protected you very well. Let's do this. After we meet up, let's talk in detail. In addition, Yuri, organize everyone. We may have some things to solve next. The counselors looked at each other and nodded silently. The arrival of Siegel Klein naturally gave these counselors who had just escaped from April City a backbone. Understood. Then, everything depends on you. Speaker. Hearing Yuri's address, Siegel shook her head. Don't call me speaker. Right now, I'm just a coward who ran away. When a recycling house and the tail of a giant snake met up, a meteor swept through the darkness and entered the area surrounded by large and small gravel belts at an extremely fast speed. Energy output is stable. All parameters are stable. The OS program is running stable. The deviation value is between 0 and 1. After carefully checking the parameters of each county presented in front of him, Ray Minkai slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Ray Minkai's mark was finally branded in the OS program of the Free Gouda. From now on, only Ray Minkai could activate the Free Gouda. Next, will I have to face Speaker Siegel? For some reason, Ray Minkai felt a sense of uneasiness. Chapter 608. Among the Naku in New Home, everyone's eyes were either amazed, fiery, contemplative, or complicated. Less than a few hours after the recovery house and the giant snake's tail converged, the free Gouda driven by Ray Minkai finally joined them. Moreover, after the free Gouda steadily entered New Home's slightly narrow Naku, which had accommodated the Red Heresy and the Dark Assault, the mission finally came to an end. I thought my luck was good enough. I didn't expect you to bring back something good. There was no need to look. When Law's eyes saw the dazzling appearance of the Freedom Gundam, which was far more handsome than the Assault, he was stunned on the spot. Law, the free Gouda is not enough for you to touch now. Coming out of the free Gouda's cockpit, with the help of the state of microgravity, he slowly fell from the cockpit more than 10 meters above the ground in front of Lux, Nigger, Law, and others. Kai. As soon as she saw Ray Minkai return safe and sound, a smile of joy appeared on Lux's face. However, she was reserved and did not make a move to throw herself into Ray Minkai's arms on the spot. Lux, I'm back. When Ray Minkai saw Lux, he put down his worries and smiled from the bottom of his heart, and the fatigue, after a fierce battle, also dissipated a lot. Kai, welcome back. Standing next to him, Nigger carefully looked at Ray Minkai and found that the other party had not suffered any harm. He also set his eyes on the free Gouda like Law. Is this the MS equipped with an anti-neutron jammer, that father said? Well, yes. Nigger, this is one of the MS equipped with an anti-neutron jammer, the free Gouda. I didn't expect you to take it away. In the crowd, a middle-aged man who looked somewhat similar to Nigger stepped out of the crowd and stood beside Nigger. He looked at Ray Minkai as he spoke. Are you the Ray Minkai that Nickel and Miss Lakis were talking about? Who would have thought that we would be saved by a hero? Patrick Sala really kept us in the dark. No, Senator Amify. I'm afraid Patrick Sala didn't know we were still alive before this operation. Lax shook her head, denying Yuli Amify's speculation. Ever since the Silver Wind incident, Ray Minkai and Lakis had disguised themselves as refugees and entered the Archangel. They had followed the Archangel all the way, and after parting ways with the Archangel, they had secretly left Alaska's headquarters and experienced a series of events. With such a complicated experience, even if Patrick Sala became suspicious, he probably wouldn't be able to find any clues, right? No one in the highest council of Plant would have guessed that Ray Minkai and Lux were hiding on Archangel. The facts had proven everything. Not to mention Patrick Sala. I'm afraid even Miss C, who was hiding behind the scenes, was surprised by the news that the real Lakis Klein was still alive. Really? Let's put this aside. Ray Minkai, I have heard the details from Nickel. Do you want to transfer the pair of wings from the Dark Assault to the free Gouda? As soon as Yuli Amify spoke, Ray Minkai was taken aback. To be honest, Ray Minkai may have had such an idea at some point, but in fact, Ray Minkai didn't have any hope that the wing-type Radiant Bearer could be transplanted to the current free Gouda. After all, this was not the Copeland world where unlimited magical modification could be carried out by relying on technology and glue. It seemed that I was right. Seeing the surprise in Ray Minkai's eyes, Yuli Amify was quite proud. In fact, my research institute has a good connection with Dr. Serene of DSSD. When she developed the Radiant Bearer, she once revealed to the Research Institute that she wanted to obtain a new energy device that could support the Radiant Bearer's long-term operation. And I believe Ray Minkai and Miss Lux already know about this. Sure enough, Nickel had already told Yuli Amify about Ray Minkai and Lux's relationship with Celine. So, the next moment, Ray Minkai's question was answered. Although we can't satisfy Dr. Celine's desire for a new energy device, we still gave some blueprints to Dr. Celine in some way. There was no doubt that Yuli Amify's explanation suddenly made Ray Minkai feel enlightened. Blueprints, some blueprints, the blueprints that could transplant the wing-type Radiant Bearer, which should not be compatible with the free Gouda skeleton, to the free Gouda skeleton, are probably the free Gouda skeleton design blueprints, right? Wait a minute. At this moment, Ray Minkai thought of a problem. The fixed device and energy-linked device of the wing-type Radiant Bearer can be adjusted? That's right. After all, the initial data of the free Gouda was developed by referring to the data obtained from the dual, storm, Thunderbolt, and Holy Shield Gouda. In other words, as a derivative of the same series of Assault Gouda, the equipment that the Dark Assault can use can also be used by the Free Gouda. We just need some adjustments and tools to make the adjustments. As he spoke, Yuli Amifai's gaze swept a few times on the pile of scrap steel piled on the right side of the Red Heretic and the Dark Assault. Here, I'm afraid you can't find a tool that can transfer the wing-type Radiant Bearer to the Free Gouda's body. Hearing Yuli Amifai's words, Law, who was very envious of the Free Gouda, moved his mouth, but he didn't say any words of rebuttal. After all, this was the truth. If it was just to torment Law's own Red Heretic, Law's self-made tools were enough to deal with most of the work. But when it came to the new MS of the Free Gouda and the cutting-edge technology of the wing-type Radiant Bearer, Law's self-made tools were probably not enough. However, if it's only for emergency use, I can make some link devices to connect the Free Gouda's reactor directly to the energy device of the Dark Assault's wing-type Radiant Bearer. It's just that it can only be used once. What was surprising was that Yuli Amifai, who first said that it was currently impossible to transplant the wing-type Radiant Bearer to the Free Gouda and let the Free Gouda become a stitched monster, said something with some hidden meaning. Ray Minkai frowned slightly. When the energy source of the wing-type Radiant Bearer was sufficient, it displayed unparalleled extreme speed. No matter who witnessed it with their own eyes, they would fall head over heels for it. And now the same method was needed to use the wing-type Radiant Bearer. Let me explain. The crowd parted again. This time, in addition to Tsong Yunxiao, who appeared in front of Ray Minkai, there was also a blond middle-aged man who looked a little haggard but seemed to be in good spirits. Nice to meet you. Your Excellency, Ray Minkai. I'm Siegel Klein. I didn't expect that the last compatriot of Eunice No. 7 would be the one who saved us from danger. After a brief self-introduction, Siegel moved his gaze and fell on his beloved daughter, Lux Klein, for a while, then looked at Ray Minkai. Thank you for your help with Lux's matter, Your Excellency. If it weren't for Your Excellency, I'm afraid Lux would have become one of the many ghosts of Eunice No. 7. As soon as he spoke, Ray Minkai felt that something was wrong. This seemed to be the feeling of a father-in-law looking at his son-in-law. No, Your Excellency, that was just to save myself. In the Silver Wind, except for Lux, I didn't save anyone else. This was probably the best I could do. No, at that time, there was no other way. But now, you've saved us and the hope of the Supreme Council. Siegel was indeed an old fox in the political arena. First, he praised Ray Minkai, then began to try to test Ray Minkai. Battle with Spitbreak? Siegel's purpose was seen through by Ray Minkai as soon as the name appeared. Come to think of it, this might be inevitable. As the protagonist who was about to turn Zaf's Spitbreak battle plan upside down and rescued the Archangel that should have sunk in the explosion of the Cyclops, the Free Gouda and Kiri Yamato had collapsed. Now, the wheel of history had finally returned to its original track. However, the person who drove the Free Gouda to Alaska might be Ray Minkai. Do you want me to stop Spitbreak's battle plan? Ray Minkai thought for a while and revealed a bitter smile. That was not an easy thing to do. Now that his and Lux's existence had been exposed, as long as he appeared on the battlefield of the two armies, mice, he would probably take action. Yes, but it depends on your personal wishes. Siegel didn't seem to force Ray Minkai to stop Spitbreak's battle. After Ray Minkai gradually combined the existence of with the events he knew, he came up with an inference that may or may not be realized. From the clone of Yuli Amifai, the mastermind seems to want to support a king to rule the world. Who will this king be? We don't know yet. However, if we want to support the king, we might need to use some methods. For example, military achievements. Lux had already thought of a key point. Yes, military achievements. Behind the illustrious military achievements were countless white bones. What buried countless white bones were the flames of war that spread to the human world. After thinking through this key point, Lux sighed faintly. At this point, the only people who could stop the Spitbreak battle were Ray Minkai and Free Gouda Kai. Actually, you don't have to go. While speaking softly, Lux's hand gently held Rei Minkai's right hand. Her eyes seemed to be begging Lei Minkai to agree to her request. No, if we want to find a mastermind, I have to go. After all, in this world, one Lux Klein is enough. Chapter 609. The headquarters of the Earth Alliance Army, Alaska Base. Since the Archangel successfully returned to this base with the assault on Gouda, it had been in a state of repair. Although the grounding order had been lifted, they still did not receive any orders to attack. They could only wait quietly in the port. Archangel, which was undergoing maintenance and repair, seemed particularly out of place compared to the particularly busy surface warship next to it that was busy with the guard rotation mission. However, for the maintenance crew, this feeling of being out of place was nothing, because the maintenance work of a warship, especially a new warship, was enough for everyone in the maintenance crew to devote themselves to work. They had no energy to care about other things. However, on the Archangel, there were still some idlers who had no choice. When will these days come to an end? Kira's good friend, Kaz Baskak, who was now the communication number of the Archangel, complained in boredom. Miriaria, who was standing next to him, didn't know how to comfort him for a while. After all, even she herself didn't know how long the current situation would be maintained. The grounding order was finally lifted, but they were told that the Archangel needed to complete a series of maintenance before they could proceed to the next step. Moreover, during the maintenance process, all crew members were prohibited from leaving the Alaska base. At the same time, the crew members were also prohibited from contacting their families. In other words, the grounding order was just a disguised transfer from the Archangel to the Alaska base. In the entire Archangel, only Flay and her fiancé, Sai Agiel, were able to smoothly disembark from the ship with the help of Flay's father. They left Alaska's headquarters with the greetings of the young boys and girls. As members of the command level of the Archangel, the veterans represented by Matthew Lamias and Natale Bakililu were often summoned to the command center to participate in various meetings in the name of understanding the situation of the battles that happened on the Archangel. Regarding this point, Major Mu, who Kaz was most familiar with, had privately complained more than once that the higher-ups of the Alaska base ate the wrong medicine. He had clearly submitted more than 3 reports, but he still had to hold an inquiry meeting again and again. The constantly tormenting schedule made the 3 leaders of Archangel, Marlowe, Bucky, Lulu, and Mu, tired out. They had no time to pay attention to the feelings of Kaz, Mirialia, and the other soldiers who were born halfway through their journey. Flay and Sai will be fine. I can leave early. Mirialia sighed, and a hint of envy appeared in her eyes. Sai, there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked Flay's father to be the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs? This was something that could be done. However, our home was in Abu. Aubrey doesn't care about what happens here. Kaz sighed, and then said worriedly, That's right. Speaking of which, I wonder how Kira is doing. Dole went out earlier. He said he was going to ask about Kira. He should be back soon. At the mention of Kira, Miriaria suddenly recalled something that happened the night the Archangel returned to Azra's headquarters. Rei Minkai and Lakis, who were supposed to be on Archangel, suddenly disappeared. Major Mu, who had a conflict with the guards here, had never mentioned anything about Rei Minkai and Lakis since then. This mystery not only made the officers on Marlowe and Bucky's side remain silent, but even the boys and girls on Mirialia's side didn't have the courage to understand, because it was too strange. Compared to Alaska's HQ's nonchalant response when he asked about Kira's situation, the harsh reprimand when he asked about Lei Minkai and Lakis' whereabouts, and even the extreme reaction of raising their guns to threaten him, the former's reaction was simply a synonym for friendliness. Oh, Mirialia, Kaz, so you're here. As expected, Mirialia's boyfriend, Dolnisi, returned from outside. Looking at his happy expression, it seemed like he had received some good news. Mirialia, Kaz, there's news about Kira. What? Really? Mirialia and Kaz cried out in surprise. Uh-huh. If the officer didn't lie, Kira should have gone home by now. Dole nodded, and before the two could ask about the situation, he continued. Also, he said that the preparation work of Archangel is almost complete. As long as we pass the final evaluation, then a new crew will come to take over, and then we can go home. The surprises came one after another, and the boys and girls couldn't help but feel the joy of seeing Hope again. However, this news was only a surprise for the boys and girls, but for the leadership of Archangel, it was not very good news. Captain, haven't you contacted Admiral Halbarton yet? After Bucky completed her routine duty, she stood in the bridge and looked at Marlowe, who came to take over. Marlowe couldn't help but sigh when she heard this question. Since Halbarton and his 8th Fleet returned to the moon base, they had been cut off from the outside world. No matter how Marlowe tried to use the communication equipment of the Alaska headquarters to contact the moon base, the result was almost the same. Then, Brigadier General Halbarton and his 8th Fleet were in the middle of a mission, and, at the critical moment of cutting off any communication with the outside world, no one was allowed to inquire about Halbarton and the 8th Fleet. For this reason, Marlowe also received criticism from the higher-ups of the Alaska headquarters twice. Bucky Lulu looked at Marlowe's haggard face and couldn't help but move the corners of her mouth. Captain, actually, I heard very bad news. News? Marlowe was taken aback. Then she looked around and found that she and Bucky Lulu were the only ones left on the bridge. Captain, don't worry. This wasn't a big deal. It's just about my transfer order. Transfer order? Marlowe's gaze changed, and she subconsciously pondered for a moment. Lieutenant Natale, you're going to be transferred? From Archangel? Bucky Lulu nodded slowly. It's the moon base. It just so happens that I can go there to inquire about Brigadier General Halbarton. In any case, it's better to go to the moon base in person than to use the communication equipment of this base to contact. Isn't it? Bucky Lulu's words made Marlowe smile softly. That's true. At least you won't be watched by a superior on the phone. For some reason, looking at Marlowe's self-deprecating smile, Bucky Lulu suddenly showed a smile. That's true. Thank you for your hard work. Captain, perhaps it was because Bucky Lulu, who had always had an iceberg face, suddenly showed a smile. Marlowe was stunned for a moment. That's true. Then, I'll leave the matter of Admiral Halbarton to you. Natale, standing at attention and saluting, the conversation between the two ended in a way between soldiers. However, at the moment it ended, Marlowe suddenly showed a look of appreciation. To be honest, Lieutenant Natale, your smile is also not bad. Ew. Captain, now is not the time to talk about this. I'll go back and sort out the handover. Marlowe's soft words made Bucky Lulu, who was regarded as an iceberg by many crew members, flee. Perhaps this was an unexpected gain before parting. However, with Bucky Lulu's departure, the fate of the Archangel would probably become uncertain, right? On the blue planet, in the boundless space, a huge fleet was slowly moving along a predetermined orbit. And below this fleet, under the blue sky, there was a huge underwater fleet that was feigning from Panama, but in fact it was going north to Alaska. And this terrible army assembled by the Space Orbital Airborne Force and the underwater fleet was to go north to attack Alaska, the joint headquarters of Earth. This was the real purpose of Spitbreak's battle. The ZAF Defense Committee, led by Patrick Serra, had already set the headquarters of the Earth Alliance, the Alaska base, as their ultimate goal from the beginning. All other purposes were just a smokescreen. Now, Zaft, who suffered a setback in the attack and defense of the Victoria Airport, finally completed the gathering of forces and launched an attack on the Alaska base, the Earth Alliance's vital point. This was a battle of vengeance. It was also a battle to let the Earth Alliance see the strength of Zaft. In the face of such a force, the first thing that the Alaska base did was to evacuate many key personnel and many elite backbone personnel who were retained. What? You want me to report to the port immediately? Moo, who had just walked out of the cafeteria, was suddenly shocked by this hour. There was no doubt that this was an emergency transfer order. Without any hesitation, Moo ran back to his room packed up his things, and rushed out of the Archangel. He didn't even bother to send out a message. Looking at the back of Mu leaving, the haze in Marlowe's heart became deeper. Could it be that the Alaska base? The roar of machinery was endless. Since 4 hours ago, Yuri Amify, who had finalized the modification plan, pulled Law to start a temporary modification for the flying wing-type Radiance Bearer. Under the cooperation of the two, using the ready-made tools and materials in their hands, they successfully tossed out the conversion device that allowed Free Gao to temporarily function as the flying wing-type Radiance Bearer. Although it looked a bit ugly, in terms of function, it had indeed completed the original purpose. Do we really have to do this? Nickel patted his forehead helplessly. Now, through the temporary modification, the flying wing-type Radiance Bearer could indeed obtain powerful energy from Free Gauda, but it also forced the Dark Assault to almost lie on the back of Free Gauda to achieve this purpose. It has to be said that even Lux couldn't stand that bad posture. Ahem. Senator Amify, Law, can you delay it a little longer? Ray Minkai coughed a few times awkwardly, trying to find a solution from Yuri Amify and Law. Law also knew the embarrassment in front of him, but he didn't have many good solutions. The problem still had to go back to the original starting point. Although there were many parts and materials in New Home, there were not many suitable for making energy conversion devices. Coupled with the fact that time was pressing, it was already Law and Yuri Amify's limit to make it like this. No, there are not enough materials and tools. Alas, it's worthy of Zaf's latest MS. There are many technologies in it that I haven't seen before. Kai, this is all I can do at the moment. With that said, Law held his head in distress and sighed. There's not enough time. If you give me some more time, even if the parts and materials are not enough, I can think of other ways by myself. Yes, there's not enough time. Your Excellency, Ray Minkai. Now it's the limit of what we can do. Next, it's up to you and Nickel to cooperate. Yuri Amify sighed in the same way. So, after the device was completed, Ray Minkai and Nickel boarded the cockpit of Freedom Gauda and Dark Assault respectively. Yo, Kai, your new toy this time is not bad. Do you need my help? As soon as he walked into Freedom Gauda's cockpit, what appeared in front of Ray Minkai was the elusive white cat. State 0. You have a way? Not really. I can just help you stabilize the state of the simple energy conversion device. White Cat State 0 waved its paw, and its eyes showed a trace of pride. Really? Then I'll leave it to you. With you, I can start the Radiant Bearer at full power. If White Cat State 0 was willing to help, Ray Minkai could naturally arrive before Spitbreak's battle was at its most intense, and even before the Cyclops system buried under the Alaska base exploded. Oomph. Piece of cake. White Cat State 0's eyeballs rolled as if it was thinking of something, but Ray Minkai didn't care much. What White Cat State 0 was eyeing was probably the wing-type Radiant Bearer. Half an hour later, the simulation test was completed smoothly. The efficiency of the energy conversion device connecting Freedom Gauda and Dark Assault was in line with the expectations of Yuri Amify and Law. Therefore, it was time to set off. In the locker room, Lakis held the helmet with both hands and looked at Ray Minkai, who was buttoning it one by one. Lakis, next, Law and Song Yunzhao will take you to the Colonial Satellite Cemetery. Through there, you can go to the Pillar of Heaven that is being built by Ob. Lund Sahak should be waiting for you there. Ray Minkai, who changed into the pilot's uniform, explained the next arrangements while closing the cabinet. Yes, I know that. After meeting up with Lund Sahak, Father and the others will go to Scandinavia. I will wait for you at Ob. When Freedom Gauda rushed out of New Home, met up with Dark Assault, activated the wing-type Radiant Bearer, and turned into a stream of light to fly to Earth, Lakis' words were still echoing in Ray Minkai's ears. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.